Empire of Steel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Your Highness, Your Highness. It was as if he had slept for a century and woke up in a daze. Xiao Ming had a splitting headache. What caught his eye was the white gauze curtain and the room carved with red lacquer wood. Aren't you dead? Xiao Ming muttered to himself. The scene of the explosion in the laboratory still seemed to freeze in front of him. Sitting up, the purple embroidered quilt slipped off, and he was wearing a white undershirt and cloth trousers similar to those in a costume drama. Strange, what is this? He propped up his body and wanted to get out of bed, but a white and slender hand made him squeak in his heart. It was definitely not his hand. In the panic, he raised his hand and touched his facial features. His heart was cold. He was not him. Your Highness, why are you up? A slender voice came, and then a girl in a long green dress came in from the outside, with a humble demeanor. Lulu? The name came out naturally, and a series of memories erupted suddenly like a volcanic eruption in an instant. He already understood his identity. His current name is also Xiao Ming, but this Xiao Ming is the current 7th prince, and the place where he lives is a place called the Great Yu Kingdom. This world was basically the same as the history he was familiar with before the Three Kingdoms, but the history after that was a mess, and now he didn't know that the Great Yu Kingdom was equivalent to which dynasty. If we have to compare, we can only say that it is the scientific and technological living standard of the Tang and Song dynasties in the 17th century of the Ming dynasty. As for the rest of the world, he doesn't know. After all, this is a place where information is blocked after crossing the threshold. Xiao Ming had to accept this fact. Fortunately, he seems to be a prince and has his own fief. Unfortunately, his fief seems to be the most barren, not so far from the capital Chang'an, and the most terrible thing is that the northernmost side of the fief outside Kangxiao is the vast grassland of the grassland barbarians. It can be said that his fief may be occupied by the barbarians at any time. Not only that, but Xiao Wangsun, the current emperor of the Great Yu Kingdom, is very old, but the crown prince is weak and may be abolished at any time, which basically means that the position of the prince is pending. It is precisely because of this that the princes fight openly and secretly, and they fight each other, and they can't wait to kill each other. Although he is in a remote fief, he is also a prince after all, and he cannot escape this fate. And the reason why he was sent to such a distant place was naturally because he didn't like the emperor at the same age. He was driven to this place when he was 13 years old. In the past 5 years, Xiao Wangsun has never had an edict asking him to go back to save his relatives. The 6th prince, who is a month older than him, is still staying in the capital Chang'an. The minister has repeatedly advised the 6th prince to become a vassal, but the emperor does not agree. In addition to the 6th prince, the 2nd prince, the 3rd prince, and the 4th prince are also in Chang'an. There is only one 5th prince who has the same feudal fief as him, but his family's Shu land is much richer than his. After thinking about it, the reason why he was treated so hard seems to be because his mother did not have any background in the gentry. The other princes and princesses are more or less related to the 5 surnames King of today's Dayu. If you don't like it, you won't like it. If you don't have anything to do, you have to recognize a father. You are in the fief, and you are happy saying so, but Xiao Ming's days in the fief were very sad, not to mention the lack of fief's materials and the poor livelihood of the people. The important thing is that these materials are still in the hands of the local wealthy families. These wealthy and powerful families are covering the sky with one hand in the local area, and there are even people who only know the wealthy family and do not know what the King of Qi said. Xiao Ming was dazed and naturally did not understand these dangers, but he clearly understood and shared the same interests. These wealthy clans were obedient dogs with conflicting interests, and they were man-eating tigers. After figuring out the current basic situation, Xiao Ming sighed, and now he seems to be living in dire straits. But remembering the reason for his crossing, he suddenly had a glimmer of hope. At the moment when the laboratory exploded, the experimental product technology spar seemed to hide him directly, and when he was asleep, he always felt that the spar seemed to be in his consciousness. This technology spar is a kind of energy crystal, which is said to come from prehistoric civilization. During the experiment, not only a large number of black technologies were discovered, but the researchers also injected all kinds of knowledge of contemporary human beings from ancient times to the present. The purpose of this experiment is to perfectly integrate people's consciousness and technology spar to create a civilization maker. From the secrets he learned that once the technology spar is integrated, he can fully master the technology library in the technology spar. In addition, people who integrate the technology spar can also impart knowledge to others. This kind of knowledge transmission method, similar to the inheritance of memory, can allow others to master scientific and technological knowledge to a limited extent, allowing a civilization to rise rapidly. Excited in his heart, Xiaoming felt the technology spar in his mind, and the huge amount of knowledge was instantly pressed down like a mountain from ancient times to the present. Every scientific and technological knowledge, all-encompassing literary works, the manufacture of every industrial product, the production of every material, and even the advanced black technology civilization maker, earned it. At first, he still felt a little self-pity about his dilapidated fief, but Xiaoming's spirit was suddenly excited. As the name suggests, a civilization maker is a person who can build civilization from scratch. This function is very suitable for him now his fief is poor, and with the technology spar, he can develop various tools to improve productivity. Using these tools, he can master a large amount of resources, and when the time comes, the fief is really in his hands. Otherwise these giants will be a hidden danger. After all, with a clear goal in mind, Xiaoming giggled. Your Highness, Your Highness. Xiaoming's silly smile made the maid by the name Luluo tremble with fear. In the past 2 days, King Qi was seriously ill. If the disease was bad, none of their servants would be able to live. Although King Qi was not favored, how could it be? Said to be a prince. Thinking of this, Luluo felt sad in her heart, and could not help sobbing in a low voice. Father, Mother, my daughter is sorry for you. I can't be filial to you. Xiaoming, who was immersed in his own fantasy, was disturbed by Luluo's cry. He returned to his senses and looked at his personal maid, who was 18 years old, handsome and beautiful in his memory. His 2 maids Luluo and Aster were given to him by his mother, concubine Zhen, but so far, Xiaoming doesn't seem to have touched this maid. It's not that Xiaoming is a Liu Shui, it's just that Luluo and Zuan have just entered the Qi Palace for less than 10 days, and he died before he could take it. Why are you crying? I'm not dead. Xiaoming knew what Luluo was worried about. Although she had only been in the palace for 10 days, Luluo's timid personality was very clear. Luluo was so frightened that she immediately stopped crying. The voice was like a mosquito. Slave. This slave thinks that His Highness has hysteria. This hysteria means neurosis and mental problems. Xiaoming glanced at Luluo. What are you thinking about? If you have time, it's better for this king to check your body. Check your body? Your Highness, what is a body check? Luluo asked with wide eyes, blinking, puzzled. The former king of Qi, Xiaoming, was timid and cowardly and had a surly temperament, which was one of the reasons why the emperor did not like him. But Xiaoming didn't intend to imitate his predecessor's character. It was unnecessary. Who made him the emperor of the earth on the fief? Moreover, Xiaoming has always been free and easy, bold and unscrupulous, and he can't bear to play a person with the opposite personality. Now that he knows that his relationship with Luluo is like Jiabaoyu and Xiran, he can only secretly rejoice when he comes to this era. More than 20 years of engineering dog's monk career can finally write a big full stop in this world. Checking the body means looking, hearing, asking, and observing the physiological structure. Xiaoming said with a wicked smile. Luluo burst into tears and laughed. When will your Highness see a doctor? I understand it, but what is this physiological structure? Chapter 2. This picture is too beautiful. This is about to be discussed in depth. Come, sit here. Xiaoming pointed to the edge of the bed, smiling like the weird uncle who lured the little girl with a lollipop. His Royal Highness. Luluo stepped back abruptly and said with a crying voice, how dare you sit on your Highness's jade couch as a slave and servant? If Pang Changshi finds out, Luluo will inevitably be punished. Pang Changshi. The name in Luluo's mouth made Xiaoming frown. This Pang Changshi, whose real name is Pang Yukin, is the long history of the King Zhao Grand Governor's mansion when he was a feudal fief. This Pang Yukin was assigned by the emperor to follow him all the time, and the purpose of his follow-up is also very clear. The good point is to preach and teach careers to solve doubts, and the ugly point is to monitor him and make small reports to the emperor. In Xiaoming's memory, this Pang Yukin was someone he hated very much. Xiaoming's father, Xiao Wangxuan, was extremely shrewd, and all the Changshi dispatched were nerds. Among nerds generally, such people have a characteristic, rigidity and lack of heart, and they are still loyal to the emperor. If Xiaoming has any place in the fief that he can't see, he will definitely make a small report immediately, and then Xiao Wangxuan will write to him and scold him. Although this Pang Changshi was targeting his predecessor Xiaoming, but now he had to face it. And the disgust in his memory made Xiaoming suddenly disappointed and a little boring. Glancing at Luluo, the little girl was clutching the corner of her clothes for the most part, looking flustered, as if she had done something wrong. Xiaoming suddenly realized that this little maid had moved out of Pang Changshi on purpose. After self-reflection, he was indeed in a hurry just now. I am afraid that she was frightened, And also, although it was the maid he asked for in a letter from concubine Zhen, but what concubine Zhen meant between the lines, Luo and Zhuan originally begged her, but concubine Zhen felt sorry for her son, so she gave them away and let him treat them favorably, which was reluctant. Cooked ducks can't fly. Besides, Xiao Ming is not a good person, but he is not a bad person either. He doesn't bother to bully men and women in this case, it can only be cultivated slowly, he said. You step back, this king is going out for a walk. Luo sighed softly. She didn't know that all her thoughts were clearly seen by Xiao Ming. Actually, I don't blame him. Xiao Ming used to be a central dog in Chang'an. In the 5 years since he arrived in the fief, it has not stopped. It is precisely because of this that Pang Yukan kept making small reports. The pile of small reports in Xiao Wangxun's hand is estimated to be enough for the entire Great Yu Palace to wipe their butts for a day. These Xiao Ming's bad deeds, it is impossible for her to wait in front of concubine Zhen without knowing, so she was afraid of Xiao Ming from the bottom of her heart. When Xiao Ming was about to go out, Luo took the clothes and said, Your Highness, the servants will wait for you to get dressed. I wanted to say no. Engineering dogs usually do laundry and cooking by themselves, and they have a strong hands-on ability. But when it came to his lips, Xiao Ming changed his mind again. Now that he has come to this world, it is still necessary to follow the customs of the countryside. And his performance is too unusual. Maybe that Pang Yukan sent a small report. His Royal Highness has hysteria today. At that time, Xiao Wangxun, the old fox, will probably take back his fief without stopping. However, Xiao Ming is still very strange about the issue of fiefs and vassal kings. Although the history of this world has changed since the Three Kingdoms, the issue of the vassal king should still have a lesson from the Han Dynasty. Generally speaking, a clear-headed emperor would not be happy to see the existence of a vassal king. However, in the Great Yu Kingdom, it was a common thing to divide the vassal kings. After careful recall, he found the reason from the small amount of historical information that Xiao Ming had. After the Three Kingdoms, the power of the clans and clans became stronger than ever, and these famous and wealthy clans played an extremely important role in the subsequent history. The dynasties have changed, and the gentry has always pushed history forward like an invisible hand. The first three dynasties, Zhou, Chu, and dynasties lasted for more than 1,000 years. In each dynasty, emperors tried to suppress the nobles, but the result was that these emperors met their ancestors soon, or the country was in trouble. In the later period of the dynasty, there were even more than 20 countries' melee battles, and the figures of the noble clans could be seen in these more than 20 countries until the establishment of the Great Yu Kingdom. The great ancestor Xiao Yuanzi conquered the Great Yu Jiangshan with the help of 5 famous families, but Xiao Yuanzi made a mistake where he started his army. That is, he promised to govern the country with 5 surnames and 7 views. Therefore, when the Great Yu Kingdom was established, Xiao Yuanzi made a big stroke and divided the Kui clan King Yan, Li clan Chu King, Zhang clan King Liang, King Kui clan King Weinan, Zhao clan Zhao Wang, Nanyang Xiao clan Ronan Wang has 6 different surnames. Among them, the Nanyang Xiao family has the same surname as the royal family, but they are not the same family at all. Xiao Yuanzi's deal is cool, but the next emperor will be saddened. These 5 surnames and 7 Wangs were originally big clans in the local area, and now they are even more powerful. In his twilight years, Xiao Yuanzi also realized this problem, saying, when the world is big, you must build a vassal screen, defend the country above, and live the people below. It's not personal to relatives, but to follow the system of the ancient sages and kings, for the long-term stability and long-term governance. This opened a prelude to the separation of seals drinking poison to quench thirst. Xiao Ming can only comment on Xiao Yuanzi like this. Xiao Yuanzi's purpose is very clear, that is, to let the royal family vassal king contain the king of different surnames and prevent the rebellion of the king of different surnames. However, it seems that this effect is not bad at present, and the Great Yu Kingdom is generally in a state of balance. It is also this kind of bullshit between the clans and clans that has led to the technology of the Great Yu Kingdom being basically at the level of the late Tang and early Song dynasties. The potential threat of the nobility clan makes every member of the royal family fearful, but unfortunately his fief is the same, and the economic lifeline is basically controlled by these big clans. It's really not easy to survive in this world. Xiao Ming sighed. With a purple peony embroidered round neck robe, Xiao Ming stood in front of the bronze mirror, with a slender figure and a slightly handsome face. This is who he is today. Stepping out of the dormitory, the soft sunlight in the morning blows towards the face, and the fresh air gives people a sense of spiritual sublimation that enhances the mind. The sky is as pure as sapphire blue, and the blue is enchanting. Under the steps, a pebble path leads to a stone bridge. The stone bridge is flanked by gourd-shaped ponds. Willow trees sway along the pond. Opposite the pond, a row of buildings with black tiles and red walls has staggered corner beams, crisscrossed, and neat red lacquered wood under the corridor supports the entire building. What I remember is just the picture, which is similar to a movie, but seeing it with my own eyes is a different feeling. Xiao Ming only now realizes strongly that he has really crossed over, and this dynasty is called Dao. I'm here, Dao. Xiao Ming said silently in his heart. This will be his fief, his home in the future. He must completely control this place in his own hands, and the first target that hinders him is the local noble family, which is also the first target he wants to settle. Chapter 3 The Landlord and Number 039's family has no surplus. His Royal Highness is recovering from a serious illness, so he should rest in bed. A burst of hurried footsteps came, and Xiao Ming saw an old man with a round head and big ears, wearing a blue round neck gown, trotting over and bowing in front of him. This person is Jin Dafu, the housekeeper of the palace. In his palace, he basically takes care of everything big and small. Xiao Ming trusted Jin Dafu very much. Before he came to the fief, Jin Dafu was the most trusted bodyguard of his mother, Concubine Zhen. Concubine Zhen sent him to Xiao Ming to have a servant who could be at ease mind as well. Xiao Ming waved his hand. The carriage is ready. I'm going to go around Kingzhou City. This. Jin Dafu hesitated for a moment, but he knew that this prince had always been surly and didn't dare to disobey, so he called his servants to prepare a carriage for Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming went straight to the main entrance of the palace. A slightly old carriage was already parked at the door. The carriage on the carriage was very small, like a box. Such a shabby carriage is a bit out of place compared to the identity of King Qi, but Xiao Ming knows that the current financial resources of the palace can only be like this. His current fiefs govern a total of 6 states, namely Kingzhou, where the Grand Governor's office is located, Leizhou and Dingzhou on the peninsula to the east, Yizhou to the south, Kangshou to the north, and Yanzhou to the west. The 6 states seem to be a lot of land, but in fact, the site is not large. The 5th Prince Xiao Quan's land in Shu has jurisdiction over 16 states. Relatively speaking, he is a poor peasant. Moreover, none of these 6 states are rich. According to the division of Upper Zhongzhou and Xiaozhou in the Great Yu Kingdom, only Kingzhou, where his palace is located, counts as upper and middle prefecture, and other places are Xiaozhou. There is a big difference between upper, middle and lower levels, basically equal to the difference between municipalities directly under the central government, prefecture-level cities, and county-level cities. In particular, Kangshou in the north is visited by barbarians on the grassland every year, and even some barbarian cavalry will go deep into the fief. 3 years ago, the barbarian cavalry kept raiding until Dingzhou before giving up. The people of the fief were poor and weak, and could not farm with peace of mind, so naturally they would not be able to collect taxes. In addition, he still had 6 prefectures' troops and officials to support, so there was no need to talk about the fief's finances. Although Xiao Ming was stubborn in the past, he also knew the situation of his fief. If Concubine Zhen hadn't rewarded him with a little silver tael every year, he might have really been drinking the northwest wind. After leaving the palace, the carriage moved slowly along the streets of Kingzhou City. Xiao Ming opened the curtains of the carriage and carefully examined his fief. Kingzhou City is 20 miles from north to south, and 20 miles from east to west. There are 4 city gates in total. The city is divided into 36 square districts. There are 2 markets on the east and west sides, namely the East Market and the West Market. This square area is similar to the structure of the current community, with a wall and some residential buildings scattered inside, but each square area is the same size, like a block of tofu placed in a box. King Qi is here. Hurry up. Hurry up. The carriage passed a private workshop, and the 3 youths who were basking in the sun jumped back into the workshop and fried. Xiao Ming smiled bitterly. These are the people who were bullied and feared by Xiao Ming before, but now he is not concerned about this, but their worn and patched clothes. Through the vision of a modern person, the people he sees are basically similar to beggars. When he arrived at Zhuangxi, Xiao Ming stopped the carriage and walked towards the market with his hands behind his back. When Jin Dafu saw it, he followed cautiously and looked around vigilantly. The East Market and West Market are similar to modern vegetable markets. Walking along the way, Xiao Ming saw very few products in the East Market. Basically, they are wheat, soybeans, millet, pottery pots, cloth, and bamboo baskets, which are very different from the dazzling array of commodities in Chang'an City. After strolling in the East Market for a while, Xiao Ming went to the West Market again, basically the same, and this is the most prosperous Kingzhou City on his fief. After a whole morning, Xiao Ming basically walked all over Kingzhou City. At noon, His stomach started to growl. Had to go back to the palace for dinner. His Royal Highness, the old slave, specially prepared vinegared celery and steamed buns for you. Covering his stomach and being hungry for a long time, Xiaoming finally waited for lunch. In his memory, such a meal was not bad. Just by looking at Jin Dafu rubbing his hands and rolling his Adam's apple, he knew how greedy he was. This is the reality of his fief. There is a serious shortage of living materials. It's not that he has no money, but that he can't buy it if he has money. To be able to eat enough is happiness. It's okay to eat this kind of food once in a while, but eating it every day is terrible. In fact, even though Xiaoming is a prince, he is very arrogant, but his standard of living is really not as good as the modern one. Xiaoming is hungry now. He usually eats boiled amaranth and boiled spinach. He wants to eat stir-fried vegetables. Sorry, I only have vegetables and can't buy oil today. This vinegar slicked celery is also rare. Otherwise Jin Dafu would have brought it over as a credit. It's rare, it's rare. Xiaoming pretended to be very happy, holding the steamed bun and eating vinegar and celery with tears in his eyes. In modern times, he hated celery with vinegar, and now eating it is a luxury. I thought it was a pleasure to cross over, but I didn't expect that the landlord's house had no surplus food for the next 3 days. Xiaoming was not idle, and went to the counties near King's House City, where there were basically a few thatched huts surrounded by an earthen wall. Not to mention the common people, there are many people who can't get enough to eat, and they can still eat steamed buns leisurely, which is already quite tall on the way back and forth. He often saw people digging wild vegetables in the wild to feed their hunger. When he arrived in Dao overnight, Xiaoming didn't have any lofty ideals, but his fief was so embarrassed that he was not as unhappy as the contemporary slums. When he was in school, he liked to play the game of territory construction. It was a spiritual enjoyment to watch his territory turn from barren to prosperous, and now that he has a real fief, how can he endure this fief that is still so abject? What's more, the local nobles are rampant, and the northern steppe barbarians will invade at any time, which is a threat to him. Driving away the prairie barbarians is a big deal for him now, but he still has to work on building fiefs, fortifying cities, training troops and horses, and hiding wealth for the people. Otherwise only the local wealthy family will be enough for him to drink. Besides, even if it wasn't to get rid of the giants and stabilize the fief, he had to work hard so that he could eat eggs every day and occasionally grill a kebab. Otherwise, wouldn't he come and suffer? The 3-day inspection gave Xiaoming a basic understanding of the situation of his fief. And he also figured out the first problem he needed to solve. That was the farming problem. Most of the common people no longer farm land for the wealthy clan, which can weaken the power of the wealthy clan and unite the hearts of the people. Chapter 4: Survival or Perish. The ideal is full, and the reality is the backbone. Xiaoming still remembers when he was in school, this was the most spoken sentence by his tutor. Now the reality he faces can only be the latter. In view of the current situation, his fiefs were impoverished, basically no different from the primitive society, and most of the arable land was in the hands of the wealthy, and the common people were mostly enslaved by the wealthy. Even if he has a technology spar, it will be difficult to change this place. And Xiaoming's memory clearly told him that the current Dao kingdom seemed peaceful, but the undercurrent was surging, and he didn't have much time to waste. He is not a person who shouts and kills, but if he wants to defend his 1-acre and 3-point land, he will not be affected by the situation in the Great Yu Kingdom and be beheaded by his restless brothers and uncles, so he must build a fief. This is a paradoxical issue, difficult but necessary to construct. Clang, clang, clang. Leaning on the stone bridge of the palace, he was thinking about the issue of the fief, when suddenly a rush of bells came from the direction of the city gate. Barbarian. Xiaoming's heart tightened. This bell is similar to the function of a beacon tower. It is a warning issued by the defenders of the city to the invasion of foreign enemies. Now that the bell is so fast, there must be barbarian cavalry in the Great Yu Kingdom. The tribes on the northern grasslands were collectively called the prairie barbarians, similar to the Huns, Turks, and Mongols in history. The prairie barbarians played the same role. That is, every year when the autumn is high and the horses are fat, they come to the central plains to loot, and the grassland is the same. In Xiaoming's memory, Prairie Man never went deep into his fief 3 years ago, but he didn't expect to come again this year. He still shuddered when he recalled the crazy destruction of the 6 states under his jurisdiction by the grasslands 3 years ago. He had to be afraid that in such an era of cold weapons, the grassland cavalry came and went like the wind, skilled in bowing and horses, and had a natural advantage in maneuvering. The predicament he is facing now is the same as Xiaomi adding a rifle to fight a plane and a tank. Moreover, his 6 states combined could not make up 100 cavalry, so he could only passively defend the city. A kind of fear spread in Xiaoming's heart. This is not a game, He will face the real life and death, and there is no way out. It is fit is his fief, his home. Do you still fear death if you die once? Xiao Ming asked himself. He clenched his fists and shouted, Jin Dafu. Prepare a horse, Jin Dafu. The voice fell, and after a while, Jin Dafu dragged his round body and ran over in a panic, panting, His Royal Highness, the horse is ready, and I have brought all the silver taels that I can take with me. Come, it's still too late for us to escape from the south gate. Xiao Ming felt dizzy, feeling that he was about to run away just now. You bastard, as the king of Qi, how could I abandon the people and run away alone? Xiao Ming scolded, and he kicked Jin Dafu's ass with a kick, causing Jin Dafu to stagger. This was something Xiao Ming used to do when he got angry, and he used it consciously. Jin Dafu squeezed his small eyes and looked stunned. Isn't this King Qi's style? In the past, it was not said that the barbarians had arrived in Qingzhou, but only that they might come. The prince shouted to escape back to Chang'an. He escaped once 3 years ago, but was beaten by Xiao Wangsun with a whip in Chang'an, saying that if Xiao Ming escaped again next time, he would kill him personally. Thinking of this, Jin Dafu suddenly thought that Xiao Ming's fear of going back was a dead word since Concubine Zhen sent him to King Qi. The only task that Concubine Zhen gave him was to protect King Qi's Haoquan. He said, Your Highness, we cannot go to Chang'an, but we can always hide in this fief of King Wei. King Wei in Jin Dafu's mouth was Xiao Wangsun's third brother and Xiao Ming's uncle. This uncle's fief was to the south of his fief. When the seal was divided, this uncle would spare no effort when he took him as the first line of defense against the barbarians. Even Xiao Ming is an idiot and knows that this uncle of the three emperors is unreliable. It can be seen that now Jin Dafu is also desperately ill. No, I'm going to the tower. Xiao Ming is determined. In a place where production is backward, people are the production resources. If people lose their hearts, they will not mention building fiefs. Jin Dafu's big round face was full of horror, and he immediately sat on the ground and hugged Xiao Ming's thigh and cried, His Royal Highness, think again, this sword has no eyes. If His Highness makes a mistake, how should the old slave explain to the Empress? Jin Dafu, because you are still the bodyguard of the mother-in-law, you are so timid and afraid of things. How can you help me achieve a great career? Is that how you are the steward of the palace? If the fief is gone, will you and I still have a place to stand? Xiao Ming scolded His Royal Highness. Jin Dafu was stunned. Ever since he followed King Qi, he had never heard any great cause from King Qi's mouth, so these words were at most someone's pretty girl. How prosperous Chang'an was, and how barren the fiefs were, etc. Now Xiao Ming's generous words today made him feel a little deafening. Xiao Ming shook off Jin Dafu and walked straight to the gate of the palace. It was cool to pretend to be coercive, and the next thing was to pretend to be coercive and make a thunderbolt. Xiao Ming's little heart was beating, thumping, and it was bullshit if he wasn't nervous. At the door, Luluo was waiting at the door with a package on her back, and there was a girl in a purple dress beside her. This was Sichuan compared with Luluo, which is like a water town in the south of the Yangtze River, with the appearance of a small jade. This Aster has a jade skin and snow skin, a weak willow and wind, an oval face, red phoenix eyes, and a bit of pungent eyebrows. A few days ago, Aster had just returned from a shopping trip, so she arrived at the gate of the palace, never expecting the barbarians to come one after another. Your Highness. Seeing Xiao Ming, Luluo and Zhuan Yingying lean over, and Butler Pang ordered them to flee with King Qi to King Wei. Xiao Ming looked at the two handsome maids, and thought it was a pity. I don't know if I can come back after I left. Before Luluo and Zhuan could react, Xiao Ming touched their buttocks one by one, and rode straight to the north gate. In the crowd, Luluo and Zhuan flushed with shame and anger, and when they came back to their senses, Xiao Ming had already mounted their horses and left. At this time, Jin Dafu ran over and saw Xiao Ming's back on horseback. Luluo thought that Xiao Ming and Jin Dafu were going to run away by themselves, and her face was pale with fright, but Aster looked as usual and asked, Steward Jin, do you want to leave our sisters behind? What left you? His Highness doesn't know if he has this area. Now he is going to guard the city with the guards. What? Aster covered her mouth in surprise. She was even more surprised than Jin Dafu. Luluo breathed a sigh of relief and rolled her eyes. Am I right? At this time, Jin Dafu didn't care what the two sisters were thinking, so he chased after him. Chapter 5 The Tinder of Technology. Qingzhou City. North City. A team of more than 30 barbarian cavalrymen under the city was pointing at the city gate, and laughed sarcastically from time to time. In the eyes of the prairie barbarians, the soldiers in the Central Plains were vulnerable, and when they saw them, they would only stay in the city and dare not come out on the city wall. 300 soldiers were standing by, and 20 archers drew longbows, ready to shoot at the barbarian cavalry wandering outside the city. Xiaoyu, King Qi is here. In the middle of the city gate, a 7-foot-long black-faced man in scaled armor was watching the barbarian cavalry vigilantly. This person is King Zhao, Colonel Lu Fei, who is in command of King Zhao soldiers and horses. King Qi? Lu Fei's voice was like a bell. What is he doing here? It will really cause trouble. Turning around, he saw Xiaoming go up the tower. When the barbarian cavalry outside the city saw Xiaoming dressed in luxurious clothes, there was a sudden commotion. This was obviously a big man. One of the barbarian cavalry restrained his horse and bent his bow, kept shooting arrows at Xiaoming with a whoosh body. The barbarian cavalry's arrow just fell on the city wall, because it was too far from the city gate and the range was not enough. This arrow was just to scare Xiaoming. Xiaoming was very calm. The technology spar in his mind contained a lot of knowledge, and Xiaoming knew the range of this ancient bow and arrow, so when the bow and arrow came, he did not hide. Lu Fei looked strange when he saw it. Today's King Qi seems to be a little different. The last commander has seen His Highness. Lu Fei bowed. Don't take out these red tapes now. What's going on now? Xiaoming asked. The fief belongs to Xiaoming. He is not only the king of Qi, but also the governor of the 6 states, which is equivalent to the position of commander-in-chief. This Lu Fei is only the captain of King Zhao, under the management of Xiaoming. Go back to your highness. So far, only a group of 30 barbarian cavalry lingered outside the city and refused to leave. Lu Fei said. Xiaoming raised his eyes and looked around. These barbarian cavalrymen wore fine scale armor, held recurved bows in their hands, and sat down on tall and strong horses, like elite soldiers. Compared with the barbarian cavalry, his soldiers wore shabby armor, and the ice blades on the soldiers' hands were rusted. Only Lu Fei's scale armor was still of a higher grade. Is there any news from King Zhao? Xiaoming used his powerful knowledge to start analyzing the current situation. Everything is normal in King Zhao. Strange, since King Zhao city has not been broken, how did this barbarian cavalry appear here? I am also surprised that King Zhao city is dangerous, and it is the only place that Qinling can pass through. If the barbarians invade, they must first break King Zhao city. When Lu Fei answered, he felt strange in his heart. King Qi, who never asked about everything, asked the key in just a few words. Xiaoming noticed Lu Fei's contempt for him when he climbed the tower, and couldn't help but feel annoyed in his heart. In the entire fief, except Jin Dafu, who regarded him as a prince, no one else looked at him directly. He deliberately said, in that case, Colonel Lu might as well lead the soldiers to take down this barbarian and ask him clearly. Lu Fei's face turned green. His temperament was reckless, but he was not without brains. His Royal Highness, there are more than 30 cavalry in King Zhao city, although the number is equal, but we are definitely not the opponents of these barbarian cavalry. And shooting out of the city gate, that is dire. Colonel Lu scared? How will the barbarian cavalry know how they are here if they don't take them down? Xiaoming said slowly. Lu Fei's face changed from green to red, and he argued, it's not the last commander who dares not, it's really futile. When the heat came, Xiaoming just wanted to beat Lu Fei. He said, really? It's possible, your highness, this is no child's play. Lu Fei felt that King Qi was crazy. The barbarian cavalry under the city did not seem to have any intention of leaving immediately. Xiaoming said to Lu Fei at this time, go and call Chen Bingqiao. Lu Fei didn't dare to disobey, otherwise the king of Qi would make him go out of the city to fight again, but he would die after a while. A thin man in a green robe official uniform appeared on the tower. Is there any caltrips? Bing Xiao is the official in charge of weapons and food in the Dudu's mansion. The most effective way to deal with cavalry is to turn them into infantry. This caltrip is specially used to deal with cavalry horses. Chen Bingqiao showed an embarrassed look. His Royal Highness, there are, but not many, only more than 30 pieces. What are you doing, Soldier Xiao? Xiaoming said angrily. Chen Bingqiao smiled bitterly. His Royal Highness, it's not that the officials are lazy, it's really a clever woman who can't cook without rice. The craftsmen of the equipment department don't have enough iron and briquettes to repair and manufacture weapons. It was so poor. Xiaoming was almost mad. He said, now you have all the blacksmiths in the city then. Xiaoming turned to Jin Dafu, bring out all the iron and bronze utensils in the palace to the equipment department. The muscles on Jin Dafu's face trembled, showing a pain in the flesh. Lu Fei opened his mouth and swallowed what he wanted to say. Lieutenant Lu, you continue to monitor this group of barbarian cavalry. It looks like this barbarian cavalry is going to eat under our city before leaving. Xiaoming glanced at the barbarian cavalry sitting on the ground. These barbarian cavalry also took them too seriously, which was humiliating him. Although Jin Dafu was in pain, He still collected the bronze tripods and iron utensils from the palace. All 12 craftsmen in the city have arrived at the equipment department, and some handymen have already started burning fire to melt copper and iron. His Royal Highness, everyone is here, but some folk craftsmen still don't know what iron caltrips are and can't forge. Chen Binkeo said cautiously, it doesn't matter, this king will teach them personally. Xiao Ming showed a strange smile, facing the huge dilemma. At least he still has a technology spar. The technology library is only a part of the technology spar, and the most important function of the technology spar is to transmit knowledge. This kind of conduction is similar to magic, similar to Taoism, similar to Dago empowerment. Simply put, the technology spar integrated into the consciousness can subtly input scientific and technological knowledge into the minds of others by connecting the consciousness of others. Xiao Ming is equivalent to the central computer at this time. He can use consciousness as a data line and import his knowledge into other computers, that is, other people. However, what to transmit and what to conduct. This is all Xiao Ming's autonomy. So Chen Binkeo watched in surprise as Xiao Ming took the 7 craftsmen to go and talk for a while. When he came back, the 7 craftsmen immediately threw themselves into forging. What surprised him was that the caltrips cast by these 7 people were even more standard and sharper than the caltrips made by the craftsmen of the equipment department. Is this still kinky? In Chen Binkeo's eyes, King Qi has always been the object of ridicule by others, but now there seems to be something wrong. Xiao Ming Xiao was satisfied with his ambition. He succeeded. By explaining this method to cover up the transmission of knowledge, these craftsmen thought they understood the manufacture of caltrips. However, these caltrips existed during the Warring States period, and they are actually very simple, just a nail similar to a triangle. Chapter 6 Applications of Tribulus Terrestris. 12 craftsmen could not rest for a while, and in 1 hour they worked to produce 300 caltrips. At this time, Lu Fei sent a report to Xiao Ming that the barbarian cavalry seemed to be leaving. Let Colonel Lu led the cavalry to immediately meet the enemy and attract the barbarian cavalry. After feigning the attack, we will retreat to the south. I will cast iron caltrips on the east gate in the middle, ambush the soldiers and encircle the barbarian cavalry. Xiao Ming said to the soldiers. The soldier responded with a promise and rode his horse to the north city. The equipment division is not far from the Qi Wang mansion, and is the closest to the east gate. Xiao Ming led the soldiers to the east gate with the caltrips immediately, and the guard of the east gate was Li Keiyun, the captain of King Zhao Kaking. In Xiao Ming's memory, this Li Keiyun had an ordinary appearance, a rosy nose, and a big mouth. Therefore, when Xiao Ming needs to dispatch troops, he would rather find Li Keiyun than Lu Fei. His Royal Highness, the barbarian cavalry is just outside the city. It is too dangerous here. For the sake of His Highness's safety, His Highness should return to the palace to rest. Seeing Xiao Ming arrive at the east gate, Li Keiyun stepped forward with his usual flattering smile and said, His Royal Highness, what Li Xiaoyi said is reasonable. This iron caltrip is ready, let Li Xiaoyi arrange it, and you can ambush the soldiers and capture the barbarians. Jin Dafu worried as soon as these words were said. Li Keiyun's expression was much more exciting than Lu Fei's. At most, Lu Fei's face changed. Li Keiyun's face was pale and his legs were trembling, and he was afraid that he would be scared to pee. His Royal Highness, this. Li Keiyun's voice trembled. Xiao Ming sighed. This is why Lu Fei is a thorn, and Xiao Ming still keeps Lu Fei, this pig Beiji, a grandson monkey, go out to molest the people and bully the people. Li Keiyun is still useful, but in the face of this real war, this Li Keiyun is completely a coward. However, Lu Fei and Li Keiyun cannot be completely blamed for this matter. It is the notoriety of the barbarian cavalry that has penetrated into the hearts of every commoner of the Great Yu Kingdom. At the end of the dynasty, when more than 20 countries were fighting, the internal disputes in the Central Plains continued, and there was no time to take care of the barbarians on the northern grasslands. During this period, the barbarians developed unprecedentedly, and the barbarians who migrated to the Changbei Mountains settled nearby, realizing a half-pastoral and half-agricultural life, and the population began to grow steadily. During this period, a tribe of barbarians named Bado flourished under the leadership of the leaders Bado, and gradually annexed other tribes. Establishing their own country from the vast grasslands in the north to Changbei Mountain, the powerful barbarians have since then started their continuous invasion of the Great Yu Kingdom, and there have been no less than 100 battles in the past 100 years. The Great Yu Kingdom was less victorious and lost more. Yao Zhao, Shua Zhao, and Ling Zhao were all lost. According to today's map, basically all the land north of the Great Wall was lost. The barbarians of this period, the people of Dayak country, talked about it. 3 years ago, the city of Kangzhou was destroyed, not because the city was not strong enough. But because the generals defending the city were scared by 1,000 barbarian cavalry and directly abandoned the city and fled otherwise, it is impossible for the barbarian cavalry to penetrate deep into Dengzhou. I remember that year, Lu Fei fought bloody battles with the remaining 3,000 soldiers from the 5 cities, and recaptured Kangzhou city before the barbarian reinforcements arrived, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Otherwise, when he was in Chang'an, Xiao Wangsuan would not have whipped him, but chopped his head directly. Regarding this Li Kaiyan, Xiao Ming didn't expect him to be able to be on his own. It was purely for the disgust of Lu Fei that he was promoted to Captain Kaka. There are 100 soldiers stationed at the East Gate, all of them are swordsmen and shields. They are not as complete as the soldiers at the North Gate, and they are all elite. Xiao Ming directly directed 10 soldiers to ambush on the city tower. When the cavalry led by Lu Fei passed by, they threw iron caltrops down and blocked the front and back roads of the barbarian cavalry. Then he instructed the remaining sword and shield fighters to ambush behind the city gate, and the city wall gave a signal, and they immediately went out to fight these barbarians. Watching Xiao Ming methodically command the soldiers, Jin Dafu slapped himself hard, bared his teeth in pain, and said to himself, "This is not a dream." Li Kaiyan was also quite surprised. Stunned for a moment, he trotted 2 steps to keep up with Xiao Ming. "Hey, your highness is wise and martial, really is the reincarnation of the god of war." The 5 bodies of the small admiration are thrown to the ground. This admiration is like the bright moon shining on the river, the world can learn from it. The distance from the North Gate to the East Gate was only 10 miles. When Li Kaiyan was flattering wildly, the sound of horse hooves came from afar. The soldiers who were ambushed on the city wall immediately turned fierce. The slaughter of the 6 states by the barbarians 3 years ago was still fresh in the memory of these local soldiers, and their deep-seated hatred never disappeared in their hearts. It's just that the fiefs are poor and weak, and they have no way to take the initiative to take revenge outside the city. Lu Fei took the lead, turned around to shoot arrows, cursed at the barbarian cavalry, and greeted the whole family. The only 30 elite cavalry soldiers left in Kingzhou were scolding along with Lu Fei. The barbarian cavalry was in hot pursuit, arching arrows from time to time. Obviously provoked by the provocation of Lu Fei and others immediately at the East Gate, Lu Fei looked up at the city wall. There was no one on it, and thought in his heart, "This King Qi has always hated me, so he won't cheat me out of the city, and use a knife to kill people. If so, wait for me to get rid of this gang of barbarians." Slaughtered him with a knife, and turned the grass into a bandit. Just after this thought, he suddenly saw a soldier standing up at the city gate, and the iron caltrops that filled the sky were scattered like snowflakes. The position is just behind him. The barbarian cavalry didn't know what to do, but they were still in hot pursuit. Before they reached the East Gate, the horse of the barbarian cavalry at the front suddenly neighed and fell to the ground. Without waiting for the cavalry behind to react, 9 soldiers stood up on the city wall, holding bamboo baskets in their hands, and threw the caltrops inside them, and their retreat was completely blocked. These barbarian cavalrymen couldn't control their horses, and they kept falling to the ground. Those barbarian soldiers who fell to the ground stepped on the caltrops again. Their thin leather boots could not resist the sharp caltrops, and the screams continued to catch them. At this time, Xiao Ming, who was hiding behind the battlements, shouted, "The East Gate opened wide," and the sword and shield guards who were defending the city shouted and rushed towards the barbarian cavalry. "His Royal Highness is watching the battle in the city. Until I capture all these barbarians." Li Kaiyan saw that the ferocious barbarian cavalry had become a duck on the slopes, and immediately took it to heart. With a roar of arrogance, he rushed out with a knife. At this time, Lu Fei, who was in charge of luring the enemy, also turned back and saw Li Kaiyan, who was rushing in front. He rode over and kicked away. At this moment, a sharp arrow rubbed Li Kaiyan's shoulder. "Silly dude, you are courting death, buckler array." Lu Fei shouted loudly. The sword and shield fighters who rushed out immediately formed a tight shield formation and pressed against the barbarian cavalry. Lu Fei had fought bloody battles with these barbarian cavalry 3 years ago, and he knew very well how fierce they were. Chapter 7 finally tasted the meat. The barbarian cavalry who fell to the ground had not completely lost their combat effectiveness, and the bows and arrows continued to shoot at the shield formation, but they were all blocked by the tight shields. Lu Fei is still good at dealing with barbarian cavalry, he said with a wicked smile. "Brothers, don't get stabbed by your own iron bristle, pick it up and throw it over." The caltrops hindered the movement of the barbarian cavalry, as well as the movement of the defenders. With Ruda's order, the soldiers picked up the caltrops under their feet and threw them at the barbarian cavalry. The barbarian cavalry continued to shoot arrows while cursing. The shield formation gradually completed the encirclement, enclosing all the barbarian cavalry in an arc. The bow and arrow are powerful, and the melee combat of the barbarian cavalry is also good, but due to the siege of the caltrops, the barbarian cavalry cannot exert their combat effectiveness at all. Occasionally a barbarian cavalry jumped out of the range of the caltrops and was beaten to the ground in less than 10 minutes. All 30 barbarian cavalry were taken. His Royal Highness, you have to decide for the last commander. Colonel Liu is too bullying. In order to grab credit and disregard the feelings of his colleagues, look at my face. The barbarian soldiers were taken into the city, and Li Keun cried to Xiaoming with snot and tears. Lu Fei dismissed Li Keun and said lightly, His Royal Highness Ming Jian, if the last general kicked him, this life would be gone. Xiaoming could see clearly that he was not the faint-hearted Xiaoming of the past. He was wrong for his own sake. He said, Xiao Lu is right. He saved your life. You should invite him to a drink. Ha ha ha. Your Highness is wise. Lu Fei laughed heartily, his eyes less contempt for Xiaoming. Xiaoming was proud in his heart. He could be said to be notorious in the fief, and few liked him this time. His small plan to capture the barbarians is estimated to be able to restore some honors for him, but Lu Fei's attitude towards him can be seen to be effective. Xiao Lu, these barbarians will be handed over to you. Be sure to ask where they crossed Kangshao. Xiaoming said sternly. Yes, obey. Lu Fei replied loudly. Then Lu Fei paused, seemed a little embarrassed, bowed and said, Your Highness, can this barbarian's horse, armor and bow and arrows be given to the last general? Xiaoming glanced at the Kingshao cavalry who were following behind them. They were still wearing leather armor, and the horses that sat down were not as robust as the barbarian horses. When Lu Fei spoke, these cavalrymen also had their eyes lit up, waiting for Xiaoming's answer. You are the elites of Kingshao. These fine horses and armors are not given to you in order to live peacefully in the fief. Xiaoming must maintain a good relationship with his generals. This is nothing but offering flowers to Buddha. Thank you, Your Highness. Lu Fei looked excited. The equipment of these elite barbarians was much stronger than the broken equipment on them. At this time, Chen Bingqiao, who was in charge of military preparations, said, Your Highness, the equipment and horses have been counted, but 2 of the barbarian horses are seriously injured, and it seems that they will not survive. What do you think? Xiaoming's eyes lit up like a wolf. He didn't touch the meat and fishy for the past 3 days, and he was almost gnawing on his feet. He said, Dafu. The 2 horses were killed by the pouting of the palace, stewed, and rewarded the soldiers. The pouting in his mouth was also the cook. Thank you, Your Highness. The soldiers defending the city roared in unison, their Adam's apple rolling, and their saliva was about to come down. It's really hard to eat meat these days. Xiaoming also seemed to smell the scent of horse meat. He secretly said to Jin Dafu, Keep the horse legs for me. Old slave understands. Jin Dafu smiled treacherously. In the evening and dusk, the fragrance of meat wafting from Prince Qi's mansion spread throughout Kingshao City along with the news that Prince Qi planned to capture barbarian cavalry. While the people were greedy for horse meat, they also wondered how this King Qi had changed his temper. Instead of being scared to hide in the palace to wet his pants, he took the initiative to capture the enemy. Although this news is incredible, the people are skeptical and expect that King Qi can really change. His Royal Highness, I asked, this group of barbarian cavalry came in by mistake from a cave in the Qinling Mountains. Lu Fei said, eating horse meat around the cauldron. Lu Fei informed Xiaoming of the result of the interrogation. The result of interrogation of such a rude general as Lu Fei has always been fast. Do you know of any other barbarian cavalry in the cave? Xiaoming frowned and flipped through the map in the technology library. In contemporary times, Qinling refers to the Huai area, but at this time Qinling obviously did not refer to it, but a small mountain near Kangshao. Ancient times were different from modern times. Except for official roads, other places were basically dense forests and swamps. These places were impassable for cavalry. It is precisely because of this that the barbarian cavalry must attack the city and pull out the stronghold. According to them, no, Your Highness, if there is such a cave, it must be blocked, otherwise the barbarian cavalry will bypass Kangshao City and attack Kingshao, and we will be very passive. Lu Fei said. Xiaoming nodded. The stability of the fief is a must, otherwise he can't develop the fief with peace of mind, which is why he risked his life to capture these barbarian cavalry. He said, You must not let the news leak out. You go to Kangshao to block that cave in person. It's better to hide it. Lu Fei ate a piece of horse meat and said, Don't worry, Your Highness, I killed all these barbarian cavalrymen, and I didn't save a single one alive. Saying this from Lu Fei is the same as killing chickens and dogs, but this is the reality after all. In such a dynasty where slaves still existed, there were no human rights to speak of. These are barbaric times. The meat of the 2 horses is definitely not enough for the soldiers of Kingshao. After dividing some meat for the soldiers participating in this battle, the other soldiers can only drink some bone soup to relieve their cravings. Even so, they were satisfied. It was an extravagant hope to be full these days, not to mention the broth after a big meal. Xiao Ming and his subordinate soldiers had a good relationship. This horse meat King Qi can give them to eat is extremely rare in the eyes of the soldiers. After all, everyone is short of food these days, and King Qi is the same. Naturally, they have some changes in their views on King Qi, of course. They didn't know that Jin Dafu secretly had 2 horse legs. It's a pity there's no wine. Lu Fei secretly stuffed the meat and bones into his arms. He had a wife and children at home, and wanted to take it back and let them taste the meat. Li Keitun saw Lu Fei's small movements and wanted to make a small report, but he swallowed the dangerous look in Lu Fei's eyes. However, he still took advantage of his mouth and said, "It's really beautiful to think, the soldiers have eaten the last meal. How can there be food for you to drink and drink?" Xiao Ming saw the embarrassment of all the soldiers in his eyes. He sighed in a low voice. The soldiers in the capital could not eat, so what about the people of the fiefs? Looking at the soldiers sitting on the soil of the palace, wearing patched military uniforms and eating the meat in their hands, Xiao Ming said, "One day, I will let you drink as much as you want, and eat as much meat as you want." Meat. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8: The Problem of Land. Your Highness, the soldiers are waiting for this day. Lu Fei laughed heartily. Today's King Qi is different from the past, and he feels more close to the soldiers. He is a straightforward person. In the past, if Xiao Ming hadn't made things difficult for him, he wouldn't have despised Xiao Ming so much. Now he doesn't know why Xiao Ming's personality has changed a lot, but this is good news for him. Continue to follow Xiao Ming for a while. Li Keitun gnawed a bone, and the special fragrance of horse meat made him unable to swallow the meat directly, but chewed it carefully in his mouth with a look of hope in his eyes. He asked, "Your Highness, it is said that this city of Chang'an is very prosperous, so the common people can eat steamed buns. It's not necessarily that we can eat it all, but life is always more comfortable than ours." Xiao Ming said after a while. In Xiao Ming's opinion, the people at the bottom of the Great Yu Kingdom would not be very wealthy. Today's law of equalizing land in the Great Yu Kingdom has long since collapsed. The Great Yu Kingdom is like an old man in the twilight, exuding a decadent aura. Jin Dafu recalled the life in Chang'an and said, "It's just a wealthy businessman. There are more noble children, and prosperity can be said. At least as long as you have money, you can buy whatever you want. Unlike King Zhao, you can't buy it with money." Salt. It is still Zuan who went to the fief of the Wei King to buy some back salt? Xiao Ming was stunned. He said, "How could this horse meat be whitewater meat?" It turned out to be because there was no salt in the palace. He said, "The east side of the fief is the sea. Isn't the way to boil the salt in the seawater?" "Understand, His Royal Highness, it's not that the common people don't understand the method of boiling salt, but since ancient times, this salt has always been an official business, and selling illicit salt is a capital offense, and Your Highness, you don't pay attention to the official salt of this fief, so..." Jin Dafu said politely. Xiao Ming blushed for a while. It turned out that this was all the fault of Xiao Ming in the past. In the past 5 years in the fief, this guy didn't care about the world, and didn't think about how to build his fief at all. He was just blindly seeking pleasure, and many institutions on the fief had not been established. With a long sigh, Xiao Ming said, "Since this is the case, when Pang Changshi returns, let him prepare for the establishment of this salt transportation department and set up official salt in Dengzhou and Leizhou. Your Highness is wise." Jin Dafu was overjoyed, and King Qi was finally enlightened. Twilight gradually enveloped Kingzhou City, and before the sunset, Lu Fei and Li Keitun took their soldiers back. They still need to patrol at night. There is a curfew in the night city of Dao Kingdom, and the same is true for Kingzhou City at this time. The palace was dark, and only 2 or 3 rooms were lit with candles. The lack of material in the fief also made the palace not have the luxury of having so many candles to light every corner. In the side hall of the palace, where the servants lived, the servants with firewood were coming in and out, braving the smoke. Just after turning around the front hall, Luluo suddenly appeared in front of him. The night was pitch black. If it wasn't for her green clothes, he really couldn't tell. "His Royal Highness, the hot water is ready. Today, His Highness captured the barbarians. He must be tired. His Highness should bathe and change clothes earlier, and rest. Luluo said softly, it has been 3 days since I came to this strange world, and every night is the time Xiaoming hates the most. A night without entertainment is really boring occasionally, it's just one day, but now it's been like this for 3 days in a row, and he really can't stand it now. He looked at Luluo, there was nothing he could do, and if he went on like this, he would probably go crazy and could only tease the two maids. The side hall on the side of the sleeping hall is where Xiaoming takes a bath. Follow Luluo back. The hot water in a large wooden bucket has been prepared. Aster is standing beside the wooden passage waiting for Xiaoming. After 3 days of living a life that was not even as good as hanging silk, Xiaoming finally felt a little psychological comfort. At least this prince still has a maid to serve him. This is how many single dogs roll around with envy, Your Highness. This servant will undress for you. Aster and Luluo stepped forward. Xiaoming straightened his body and stretched out his arms. He didn't take a bath every day. In this evil ancient times, taking a bath was quite a luxury. Getting water from the well and boiling it required a lot of servants to be busy, and even if there were a lot of money in his palace, there were only 10 people. These 10 people undertake all the sanitation, meals, and chores in the palace. Moreover, the area of his palace is not small, with a distance of 200 meters from north to south and from east to west. In Kingzhou City, Qi Wangfu is the only luxurious building. Squinting, Xiaoming enjoyed the personal service of Luluo and Aster. For the first time since crossing the road, he felt it was worth it. Luluo and Zhuan blushed. They only served concubine before, and they had never seen a man's body before. Their emotions such as shyness, fear, and curiosity were intertwined repeatedly, but they knew in their hearts that since concubine gave them to King Qi, they had already belonged to King Qi, and they could only suppress the shyness in their hearts. Would you like to wash together? Xiaoming smiled wickedly. Luluo lowered her head and did not dare to speak. Zhuan said crisply, don't worry, Your Highness, Empress has instructed, when Your Highness gets married in the future, Luluo and I will both be His Highness's people sooner or later. Xiaoming was just teasing them to find some fun in their boring life sitting in the hot tub. He glanced at Zhuan, who was more courageous than Luluo, and the explanation in concubine letter seemed to have such a line, it's just a joke, don't take it seriously. Xiaoming said while taking a shower, he wasn't a sperm, he knew what the focus was now. After a pause, he asked Zhuan, Aster, this king asks you, if you want to make this king's fief rich, what is the most important thing at the moment? Aster was surprised that King Qi would ask her this question, and replied instinctively, Aster is a woman, how can she understand these things this king ordered you to answer? Xiaoming frowned. At this time, he was still following the principle that ignorance of a woman is virtue, but Zhuan's answer was not what he expected. Startled for a moment, Zhuan was afraid that King Qi would have his old surly temper again, and said, Lan. Xiaoming nodded. The wealthy clans were sitting on the top. The threats of the northern barbarians, and the intrigues of the princes seemed to leave him little time for development. He has been thinking about it these days, and the first thing to do is to solve the land issue. In ancient times, there was a strange phenomenon in any dynasty, that is, the people were always richer than the land, and once large-scale land annexation appeared, it basically heralded the end of the dynasty. At present, the same is true of his fiefs. A large area of high-quality land is monopolized by local prominent families, and many people have no land to cultivate. Now he will solve this problem first. At the same time, the second problem he wants to solve is the inheritance of knowledge. He guards a technology library without using it, which is simply a waste of time. Chapter 9 Reform. After taking a shower, Xiaoming put on his clothes under the service of Luluo and Aster. Returning to the dormitory, he pondered the issue of reforming the land carefully. After thinking about it all night, he had a scruple in his heart, and went to the governor's mansion very early the next day. As soon as he arrived at the door, a middle-aged man in a blue robe and a black square scarf collided with him. The two stood still, and the man bowed and said, Your Highness. Xiaoming looked at the man. It was none other than Pang Changshi in Luluo's mouth. Xiaoming looked at him. His face was white, he was dressed like a scholar, his eyes were a little dull, just as he remembered a few days ago. Pang Yukin went to Dengzhou to check the accounts, and he just came back. This fief belongs to this king. I can't go anywhere. You came just in time. This king has something to discuss with you. Xiaoming went straight into the governor's mansion. In my memory, Xiaoming always had the same tone towards Pang Yukin, and Xiaoming followed suit. Pang Yukin scratched his head. Since the establishment of the governor mansion, Xiaoming has never been here, although when he entered the city, he learned from the soldiers that King Qi had captured 30 barbarian cavalry yesterday. However, Based on his understanding of Xiaoming, he still felt a little incredible. "What is your highness's order? Please tell your highness clearly." Pang Yukin asked. Behind Xiaoming, the structure of the governor's mansion is very simple. There are only 3 sets of black tables and chairs, and some documents are placed on the tables and chairs. Sitting down at the table in the middle, Xiaoming said, "This king wants to discuss with you about the Salt Transport Division and the land." Pang Yukin was quite surprised, suspecting that he had heard it wrong, and he asked again, "His Royal Highness, what did you say?" "This king has ordered you to immediately organize 5 officials to set up salt transportation departments in Dengzhou and Leizhou, and announce to the 6 states that from today onwards, the government encourages the people to open up wasteland and settle fields. For those who cultivate land, the land will belong to the cultivated, and the tax will be exempted for 3 years. The land has been released from generation to generation, and those who have land will deduct 30% of the tax from today." Xiaoming said loudly. Pang Yukin was stunned. Xiaoming's series of decrees made him completely stunned. When he came back to his senses, he said, "There is no problem with the salt transportation department and land reclamation, but if the tax is reduced or exempted, the expenses of these 6 states may not be able to make ends meet with the salt transport division. We should be able to make up for this part of the tax, and this king will think of other ways to increase the government's income." Xiaoming made up his mind. Then he said, "What do you think about the tyrants who occupy the land of the common people?" Pang Yukin's head was a little hard to turn. In the past, he basically caught the evidence of King Qi's wrongdoing, and then went to King Qi's mansion and scolded King Qi badly. Then he wrote a letter to the emperor. The emperor was writing a letter to blame King Qi. Now that King Qi is so serious about discussing government affairs with him, he feels very strange. However, Pang Yukin was not confused about the issue of tyrannical powers. He said, "Your Highness, the local tycoons are in laws, powerful and intertwined, and they are protected by many powerful ministers in the court. But don't forget King Ning back then." Xiaoming's eyes narrowed, and King Ning in Pang Yukin's mouth was his second uncle, who was known as the virtuous king in Chang'an back then. As a feudal fief at the age of 13, the first thing King Ning did was to seize the land occupied by the tyrants, but within 3 months, someone in the court impeached King Ning for treason. At that time, when Xiao Wangxuan first ascended the throne, he was very jealous of King Ning, who is known as the virtuous king. He immediately sent troops to conquer King Ning. Poor King Ning was still buried in the drum, and he was killed by the sergeant placed in the palace of King Ning by a wealthy family. Now when Pang Yukin mentions King Ning, the implication is to tell Xiaoming not to follow King Ning's footsteps in the past. Xiaoming hated this Pang Yukin very much. That was because Xiaoming didn't do good things at that time. Now, when discussing government affairs with Pang Yukin, he found that this Nord was not a bad person, and he was quite knowledgeable in this era of low knowledge penetration. It is very rare to have a few literate people to assist him. I understand. Since this is the case, the land of the tyrants will not be investigated for the time being. The key is to mobilize the people to reclaim wasteland. You have to be responsible for this. This year, the people's corvée will be exempted." Xiaoming said, "Yes, Your Highness, I'll do it now." Pang Yukin bowed and said when he first arrived in the fief, it was not that he did not propose these decrees, but Xiaoming, who was against him at the time, opposed them for the sake of opposing them, which also kept the decrees of King Zhao and other 6 states in chaos in the governor mansion. Xiaoming personally watched Pang Yukin write a notice and issued a decree before he left the governor's mansion outside the city gate. Once the decree of the governor's government was posted, it immediately caused a discussion among the people. Is this true or false? One of the people was very suspicious. The announcement of the governor's mansion can still be false. This King Qi has been in the fief for 5 years, and now he finally knows how to be considerate to the people. There are good things like this. What are you waiting for? Go home and reclaim the land. Whoever reclaims the land first will be the owner. At this time, 5 fast horses rushed out of the northern city at the same time, and they would bring the decree to the other 5 states on the city wall. Lu Fei looked at the people outside the city thoughtfully. This King Qi is really different from the past. After leaving the governor mansion, Xiaoming did not go back, but went to the equipment division. His Royal Highness Chen Wenlong, the soldier, saw Xiaoming coming over and stepped forward with a technology spar in his hand. Xiaoming needs to find a place to take advantage of technology, and this place is the equipment division. This equipment department belongs to the official camp, and the craftsmen among them are also the best in King Zhao. Xiaoming now wants to develop this equipment department. Not only forging, but also all kinds of industrial equipment will be born here in the future. This is the function he entrusted to the equipment department, Chen Binkyo, starting from today. This equipment department is directly under the king's command. You only need to obey the king's orders. You can ignore other people's orders. Xiao Ming pondered for a while and said, His Royal Highness. Your Highness is negligent in his duty, please punish him. Chen Wenlong was shocked, bowed and said, a layer of cold sweat formed on the back of his forehead. He thought that Xiao Ming was here to pursue the insufficient reserves of caltrips. You misunderstood. This king did not come here to blame you, but this king does not recognize that everything is inferior, only the narrow words of high reading. This skill is not ingenious and obscene in my opinion. On the contrary, this king thinks that this skill is ingenious. It is beneficial to the work of hundreds of workers. Xiao Ming said. Chen Wenlong breathed a sigh of relief. Your Highness is wise, and this minister also thinks so. For example, if you have the tools at hand, you can cultivate more land. That's right, so this equipment department is very important. From today, you will gather skilled craftsmen in the city, divide them into categories according to their skills, and join the equipment department. Xiao Ming said, that's okay, but Your Highness, the craftsmen of this equipment department also need to eat. This. Chen Wenlong wondered. Chapter 10 The Shoulders of Giants. Chen Wenlong's words are very vague, but this is indeed the actual problem Xiao Ming is facing now. Qi Wang's mansion has no money, and it is difficult for Sikai Ofu to cook without rice, and it is impossible to forcibly pull the strong man, otherwise the sky will be angry and the image he has just established will collapse again. The matter is yours, the money is mine. Xiao Ming gritted his teeth. He wanted to integrate the equipment division when he broke the pot and sold iron. This was his only chance to turn around, otherwise, just because of the poverty of this fief, he would have to die under the slaughtering knives of barbarians after 2 years, even if Yao and Shun were to be reincarnated. Chen Wenlong looked at Xiao Ming, who was frowning and thinking hard, puzzled. This equipment department has never been taken seriously in the Great Yu Kingdom. Today, King Qi does not know what he has done, but remembering the surly character of King Qi in the past, he didn't dare to ask more, thinking that King Qi might just be on a whim, but since he ordered it like this, he could only reply, as per your order, Your Highness. After explaining that Chen Wenlong gathered the carpenters and blacksmiths in the city, Xiao Ming thought about how to raise money and return to the palace. When he called Jin Dafu, he asked, Dafu, how many silver taels do we have in the Qi Palace? Go back to Your Highness, plus the silver taels that concubine Zhen asked Zuan and Luluo to bring. We still have about 1,000 taels of silver in the Qi Palace. 1,000 taels? Xiao Ming frowned. In the past, Xiao Ming didn't have the ability to make money, but he did have the ability to spend money. He spent a lot of money on the relief of concubine Zhen, and he also knew the price of King's House City. Generally speaking, 1 tael of silver can buy 2 stones of rice in Dao country. According to his experience, 1 stone in Dao country is equivalent to 120 kilograms in modern times. 1 tael of silver is equal to 240 caddies of rice, and the average price of 1 caddy of rice in modern times is basically 2 yuan and 51 caddies, so 1 tael of silver is basically equal to 600 yuan in modern RMB. The 1,000 taels of silver seemed to be a lot, but it was only enough for the expenses of the palace. After all, the servants, grooms, and cooks in the palace all needed to be paid. For example, Jin Dafu's annual salary is 22 taels of silver, and 15 taels of green Dylan. In addition to food and drink expenses, the rest is limited. Give me 500 taels. Xiao Ming stretched out his hand. His Royal Highness, this is the New Year's silver that Empress just issued this year, and it's all delivered to you. You have to save some flowers. Jin Dafu was stingy, afraid that Xiao Ming would squander his money like in previous years. This king is doing business this time, not looking for flowers and asking willows. Xiao Ming pouted. After Jin Dafu heard this, he hesitated and took 500 taels of silver notes and gave them to Xiao Ming. After accepting the bank note, Xiao Ming said to Jin Dafu, I will send a letter to the royal father. Jin Dafu had become numb to Xiao Ming's strange behavior in the past 2 days, so his servants immediately prepared pen, ink, paper and inkstone. Of course, he wrote this letter not to reminisce with Xiao Wangsun, but to cry about poverty. The letter probably meant that the fiefs were poor and the people would not be able to eat. Even so, he still has to spend money to fight the barbarians. He just captured 30 barbarian cavalry yesterday, and the losses are quite large. The equipment department has no money to make arrows. Hurry up and send it to Chang'an. Xiao Ming glanced at the 1,000-word cry poor composition with satisfaction, and threw it to Jin Dafu. If Xiao Wangsun still cares about the relationship between flesh and blood, maybe he can make some money. If this Xiao Wangxuan is heartless, this letter will be completely disgusting to him. Xiao Ming basically thought about ways to raise money, and the only one left was a local wealthy family. However, these people will definitely not be willing to pay for it. They are eager for the key palace to be half dead, so that they can feel at ease, but Xiao Ming will not let them go. Now these wealthy families are all fat sheep, and Xiao Ming is a person who plucks the wild goose, not to mention the fat sheep. After thinking about it, it is estimated that they will not be able to grab it by force, but it is very simple to make them spit out money. These big clans are either officials or part-time merchants. As long as there are products they are interested in, they are not afraid that they will not pay for them. For the next 3 days, Xiao Ming stayed in the equipment division all day. 500 taels of silver made the equipment division unprecedentedly wealthy. The daily purchases of wood, briquettes, and iron ore came in and out, changing the desolate appearance of the past. 30 craftsmen sat on the ground in the equipment department, and Xiao Ming stood in front of them and talked endlessly. These 30 craftsmen are basically all the craftsmen in Qingzhou, mainly carpenters and blacksmiths. Now Xiao Ming is telling them something they have never heard before. A lathe. After analyzing the knowledge in the technology library and combining the experience of the first industrial revolution, Xiao Ming believes that the foundation of the industrial revolution is lathes, which include boring machines, milling machines, grinding machines, drilling machines, gear processing machines, and so on. On the eve of the industrial revolution, it was the birth of these tools that produced precise mechanical parts, which produced qualified steam engine cylinders. The steam engine further automated the lathe, and more sophisticated parts appeared, making more machinery possible. During the Warring States period, primitive lathes appeared in China. These lathes were generally used to cut logs for water wheels, and this process has been preserved. It's just that the lathes of this period are of wooden structure and are pedal-powered, and the machine tools are very unstable. The real lathe needs high-quality steel, so that the machine tool can be fixed and various machine parts can be processed. As the saying goes, if a craftsman wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tool, which is the tool of the craftsman lathes, as the accumulated achievements of craftsman technology are also the basis for inducing the Industrial Revolution. What Xiao Ming has to do now is to first let the craftsman make various tools. Now that he is standing on the shoulders of giants, he does not need to follow the long steps before the Industrial Revolution, but cuts to the point. Of course, before manufacturing the lathe, Xiao Ming had to do one more thing, and that was to teach these craftsmen how to make steel. Xiao Ming observed the steps these craftsmen took to build weapons. Strictly speaking, these craftsmen are still using the traditional method of pouring steel, and the steel produced by this method can still be used on machine tools. However, he originally wanted to teach them the crucible steel making method, but the people here did not know where the crucible material graphite was. However, through the Science and Technology Library, Xiao Ming learned that Shandong was originally a large province of graphite mines in contemporary times, and he accurately located the location of graphite mines, and he could let people find such graphite mines at that time. He can fire crucibles and realize large-scale crucible steel making. It is now the end of the 17th century, and the Great Yu Kingdom, like the late Ming and early Qing dynasties, is unaware of the changes in the outside world because the news is blocked. Xiao Ming is also unclear, but he knew that the Mongol conquest of Europe did not seem to have happened in history, and if Europe had achieved a stable period at this time, he could not predict the level of European civilization now. Chapter 11. The Wang Family. His Royal Highness, I bought all the cold briquettes and iron ore on the market in Qingzhou. The next batch of Wang's family said it will take some time. The last truck of briquettes purchased arrived at the equipment department, and Chen Wenlong informed Xiao Ming about the situation. How much money did you spend in total? Xiao Ming asked. 200 taels. Xiao Ming felt a pain in his flesh, as if he had been cut into flesh. His nickname in the dormitory was Xiao Jialangte. How come these briquettes and ore are so expensive? Chen Wenlong smiled bitterly and did not dare to answer. In his opinion, Xiao Ming can only be blamed for this. When he first came to the fief, this dignified King Qi quickly mixed with the children of the local wealthy family all day long with these powerful sons and daughters, bullying men and women. These wealthy children learned that Xiao Ming did not like the emperor, and the money on hand was not rich, so they gave Xiao Ming a lot of money, which was deeply favored by Xiao Ming. However, these people's minds are not simple, and soon the management rights of the Qingzhou mine were sold to these wealthy families by Xiao Ming's cabbage price. Among them, the Qingzhou Wang family has obtained the most mining rights, and the cold briquettes and iron ore on the market come from his family. Your Highness, you can blame our Wang family for this. The mine in Qingzhou is 50 miles away, and there is no water transport here. It can only be carried by horses. the cost will naturally double. If we don't make a small profit, our Wang family will not be able to survive. At this moment, a frivolous voice sounded outside the door, and walked in a handsome man wearing a blue satin gown and walking on Tengai boots. It's just that the man's face was pale and weak. Isn't this Brother Shiji? In Xiaoming's memory, this Wang Shiji was the eldest son of the royal family of King Zhao, and he was also the first in his circle of friends in King Zhao. He was one of the 4 evils in King Zhao by the people I have seen, Your Highness. Wang Shiji bowed slightly to Xiaoming, holding a paper fan in his hand. No gift. Xiaoming raised his hand. He's not Xiaoming now, but in his memory, Xiaoming's love for Wang Shiji can still affect him. This is the same as Xiaoming's memory of Pang Yukan will affect him, but these are all preconceived memories now that he is not the Xiaoming of the past. He could have ignored Wang Shiji, but he understands that it is inappropriate to take the civilian line now because now he wants to unite all the forces that can be united to deal with the real enemy. This local noble family is just a contradiction within the fief, and to him, it is of great value. Wang didn't go to Yizhao to check the accounts. He never thought that His Highness would capture 30 barbarian cavalry alive. Wang really admires it. Wang Shiji sighed and showed admiration. Where is it? Brother Shiji is wrong, but it's just luck. These barbarians also came in by accident. Xiaoming asked the officer to move a chair for Wang Shiji to sit on, and asked, Brother Shiji just now back to King Zhao? Exactly. My father said that His Highness was buying cold briquettes and iron ore in large quantities these 2 days. He sent me here to ask how much His Highness needs. Xiaoming laughed secretly. What Wang Shiji said was just an excuse. The real purpose was probably to come and see what these batches of cold briquettes and iron ore were used for. These are enough for the time being, but it's just for the equipment department to make some gadgets. If I still need it, I will go to Brother Wang this time. Xiaoming bought 10 tons of iron ore and a considerable amount of cold briquettes. He just used these things for the craftsmen to practice. It's easy to say. Wang Shiji smiled based on what he knew about Xiaoming. Xiaoming would not lie to him. After a pause, he suddenly got up and said to Xiaoming, Your Highness, in order to thank you for your protection of King Zhao, my father held a banquet at home tonight. Xiaohong. I've missed Your Highness very much these 2 days. The sugar-coated cannonballs came. Xiaoming looked strange. In the Great Yu Kingdom, the family banquet of the wealthy family was a very chaotic occasion. It was basically the same as a brothel in addition to eating. Basically the wealthy family sent out their decent-looking maids for the entertainment of the guests, and the hostess Wang Shiji liked this one very much. When Xiaoming was with him before, this kind of thing was inevitable. The little red in his mouth was Xiaoming's former love interest. This. As a man, it's not normal to be unmoved. But now Xiaoming really doesn't want to go. As the saying goes, cannibalism is short-sighted and soft-handed. Every time the Wang family holds a family banquet, the Wang family will always ask for it at the last minute. He is not stupid. If this continues, the name of this fief will be changed to Wang. Seeing Xiaoming's hesitant expression, Wang Shiji showed an expression that men could understand. I heard that concubine Zhen gave 2 beauties to His Highness. Is Your Highness a little overjoyed and forgot about my little Rede? Brother Wang just needs to know. Xiaoming said. Along the way Wang Shiji showed an envious look and sighed. Unfortunately, I'm afraid there are no beauties comparable to Luluo and Aster in King Zhao. Your Highness is so beautiful. When can I let my younger brother have a taste? Xiaoming's expression changed in an instant. This Wang Shiji was a well-known star in King Zhao, but now he actually hired him with an idea. He was really daring. This was the idea of Luluo and Aster. Brother Shiji, Luluo and Zuan are the concubine's personal maids. Xiaoming said sternly. Just now, Wang Shiji's mind was full of the slender figures of Luluo and Aster. When he came back to his senses, seeing Xiaoming's dangerous eyes, a layer of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. What he said just now is enough to say that it is outrageous. Your Highness, calm down, I'm really confused. Wang Shiji carefully accompanied his smiling face. Xiaoming snorted coldly. Now the King Zhao clan has a lot of power, of course he can rectify them, but at that time his fief must be broken, so his current thinking and the clan use each other. For example, this coal and iron, he also counted on these people to provide. As for Wang Shiji, if it was the previous Xiaoming, he would probably be on the same page, but when he met him, he naturally ate it this time, so he just spoke according to the way he used to get along with Xiaoming. It's okay, I also asked Brother Shiji to go back and report to Ming Lingzhen. I won't go to this banquet today. Xiaoming has already driven people away. Wang Shiji is also a good person. Xiaoming is obviously not the way he used to be, he said, so, Wang retire. Watching Wang Shiji become the equipment department, Xiao Ming continued to teach craftsmen how to make and use lathes. Chen Wenlong was also listening carefully. Now Xiao Ming was talking about something he had never heard of, but he could understand it, and the appearance of these lathes will automatically appear in his mind. Gradually, the manufacturing process of the lathes has become clear in his mind, and everything is so natural. In the evening, the knowledge that should be imparted was also imparted, and the detailed manufacturing process of the technology spar was fully transmitted, and the rest was practiced by these craftsmen. It takes time to talk about and not to practice the fake handle, and it will take time for scientific and technological knowledge to reach the finished product. Chapter 12 Assassination. It was already evening when I came out of the equipment department, and a long figure of Xiao Ming was pulled out on the lowest road in Qingzhou City, wrapped in a red glow. Teaching techniques is also very tiring. Xiao Ming's mouth is dry now, but today is a historic step for him. Pure steel lathes are already in practice. When he came to this world, he was still a little confused, and now this confusion has been replaced by the passion of climbing the technology tree. Xiao Ming never thought that an ordinary person could change an era. He was very fortunate that he was a prince, not a passerby in the great Yu Kingdom. The deep-rooted thinking of imperial rule and the small-scale peasant economy since ancient times made things like equipment lacking the power to be promoted. The abundance of the population makes labor cheap and loses the value of machinery in modern times. If the guns of the West had not knocked on the door of feudal imperial power, this kind of self-sufficient farming economy would have continued. Therefore, in his view, industrial change needs to be driven by force, and he does not want this force to come from outside. This is also the reason why he is glad that he is a prince, because he is the supreme ruler of the fief. And he can act as this force to promote industrial change, and the existence of the technology library provides this support. Thinking along the way, when passing a private workshop, some sounds of silk and bamboo suddenly entered his ears. Xiao Ming raised his eyes and looked at it. Opposite him is the Qizhiufang, where the Wang family's mansion is located. In this battle, it is estimated that the family banquet of the Wang family has already begun. As for the guests of this banquet, he didn't have to think about it. It must be the Qin family, the Wei family, and the Sun family in Qingzhou. These four big households have been in-laws to each other for a long time, and their contacts are quite close. Another woman's coquettish laughter came. Xiao Ming hurriedly drove his horse back and refused Wang Shiji's invitation. At the same time, he comforted himself like this: this banquet was so absurd. It would be bad if he got sick. Just as he was thinking wildly, a sound of a bowstring vibrating sounded not far from him. Xiao Ming felt as if his hair was blown up. The great Yu Kingdom was founded on the basis of martial arts, and this royal son had been trained in bowing horses since he was a child. He is particularly familiar with bows and arrows, and the law of the great Yu state stipulates that the people are strictly prohibited from hiding weapons. Now there is the sound of bows and arrows coming from the village not far from him. There is only one possibility: an assassin. He instinctively rolled over to the other side of the horse. At this time, a bow and arrow came in response, and it was nailed straight to the mud wall of the village assassin. Xiao Ming's instinctive stress response in his memory saved his life, and he immediately cried out for help. At this moment, a group of cavalry soldiers patrolling the city heard the cry for help and rushed over immediately. His Royal Highness. A cavalry leader rushed over, but it was Lu Fei. In the face of life and death, Xiao Ming was still a little flustered when he saw Lu Fei saying, "Someone assassinated this king, take it down for me." At this time, Lu Fei saw the arrow on the wall, looked at the direction the arrow was shot from, and shouted, "Immediately seal the city gate, and no one is allowed to leave the city without my order. You two escort your highness back, and the others follow." "I come." The two cavalrymen responded and protected Xiao Ming from left and right. "I want to live." After the initial panic, Xiao Ming said coldly, "Someone wanted to kill him. This is not a joke." "Yes, your highness." Lu Fei and the others immediately surrounded the opposite Minfang, and at the same time a cavalry went to each city gate to give orders. Returning to the palace, Jin Dafu panicked when he saw Xiao Ming's muddy appearance. "His Royal Highness, you are, someone wants to harm this king." Xiao Ming frowned. This Xiao Ming has done a lot of bad things in the past, and now he can't even identify the most important suspects. Jin Dafu was frightened by Xiao Ming's words, and he touched Xiao Ming up and down to check whether Xiao Ming was injured. "It's okay. Captain Lu happened to pass by. I wasn't hurt." Xiao Ming said calmly, "That's good, that's good. I'll scare the old slave to death, your highness. These two should stay in the palace and don't go out until the killer is caught." Jin Dafu's worry showed on his face. It's just that Xiao Ming underestimated Lu Fei's work efficiency. Before he entered the palace, there was a rumbling of horseshoes, and Lu Fei arrived with a team of cavalry. Now the mounts of Lu Fei and others have all been replaced by barbarian horses. They are tall and strong, and their armors are shining brightly. At this moment, Lu Fei threw a man off his horse. Your Highness, the assassin has caught it dead? The corpse that fell to the ground was a refined man, but there was a big hole in the neck at this time, and blood was flowing. When he found him, he saw that he couldn't escape and cut his neck. Your Highness, this is not an ordinary killer. He must have been trained, otherwise he would not have committed suicide so decisively. Lu Fei said with a frown. After a long silence, Xiao Ming said, then who is going to kill me? Generally, looking for a motive for murder is basically trying for who can get the most benefit. The local wealthy family will not want to die for the time being, because Xiao Ming was foolish enough in the past, and there is still value in using it. And if Xiao Wangsun kills him, it is very simple, and it doesn't need so much trouble. This kind of assassination usually stems from the struggle for the throne and the internal power grab. Your Highness, I have only seen this kind of arrow when I was in Shu. It is a cloud-piercing arrow from Shu. Lu Fei handed an arrow engraved with clouds to Xiao Ming. The land of Shu, the king of Shu? Xiao Ming's face was sinking like water. Among the princes, the king of Shu had the worst relationship with him, because they were of the same age, and the two fought a lot when they were in Chang'an, and the two even had a fight. But the land of Shu is thousands of miles away from here. Will the king of Shu send an assassin to kill him from a distance? King of Shu? Jin Dafu rolled his eyes. Not necessarily. Lu Fei's thoughts were similar to Xiao Ming's. Although cloud-piercing arrows are a specialty of Shu, there are other places. If I die, who will get the most benefit? Xiao Ming said solemnly. Jin Dafu's body shook slightly at this time, and his eyes showed a trace of worry. Seeing Jin Dafu's strange expression, Lu Fei couldn't help but ask, does housekeeper Jin know anything? After hesitating for a while, Jin Dafu sighed. This old slave is just guessing. Does your Highness remember the third prince who has always been very close to the fifth prince? I remember that the crown prince is incompetent. Now the third prince and the fourth prince are the most favored. It is rumored that the father and the emperor intend to abolish the reserve. Now the fourth prince and the third prince are fighting fiercely, but what does this have to do with me? Xiao Ming said His Royal Highness forgot to spoke to the emperor when he fled back to Chang'an 3 years ago, and asked the emperor to spare His Highness. Jin Dafu asked fourth prince. Xiao Ming was so angry that he suddenly vomited blood. At that time, Xiao Ming was rescued by the fourth prince, and he had submitted a certificate. This is equivalent to telling the other princes that he has messed with the fourth prince. That's right. Once the crown prince is abolished and the prince competes for the crown, the Great Yu Kingdom will be a bloodbath again. You can see the figures of 5 surnames and 7 wangs behind the princes. Jin Dafu said, it came a few days ago. According to the news, it seems that the 5th prince also encountered an assassination in the fief. At that time, some people suspected that the 4th prince did it in order to cut out the wings of the 3rd prince. Xiao Ming said slowly, you mean that this is the 3rd prince's revenge against the 4th prince, and the 4th prince's wings will also be cut out, me? Chapter 13 Aftermath. This is just the old slave's guess. Jin Dafu was hesitant, but he had far more information about Chang'an than Xiao Ming. Lu Fei's expression was stern. Your Highness, these 3 princes may be targeting you, but this time, it's not just a matter of inside and outside. What's wrong with this? Xiao Ming was puzzled. His Royal Highness, the last general, has always been extremely strict in governing the army. It is impossible for the people entering and leaving the city gate to carry bows, arrows and swords into the city, unless they are hidden in the goods. Xiao Ming frowned deeply, and glanced at the direction of the Wang family courtyard, where the King's Hao nobles were drinking and having fun, and the large goods came from them. Who among them should cooperate with the 3rd prince? After pondering for a while, Xiao Ming said, the assassin is dead, and there is no evidence of his death. These are all our guesses, but it is true that someone wants to murder this king. Your Highness, there has never been such a heinous crime in King's Hao. If your Highness goes out in the future, you must bring a bodyguard to protect him. Jin Dafu always cared about Xiao Ming's safety. Xiao Ming nodded, and this incident woke him up. The world is still very dangerous. The result could not be discussed for a while. Xiao Ming asked Lu Fei to keep an eye on the movements of several noble families in the city, and at the same time strengthen the guard of the palace. The news of King Qi's assassination spread in King's Hao that night. This is the news that Xiao Ming deliberately let Lu Fei release. The purpose is to scare the snakes and see if there is any abnormality in the city. Father, King Qi was assassinated. Who do you think did it? The dim candlelight flickered. In the garden pavilion of the Wang family mansion, Wang Shiji and his father sat opposite each other. The family banquet was over. There was still a faint smell of alcohol in the courtyard, and he was a little drunk. Wang Chengchao stroked his long beard and closed his eyes as if thinking about something. He said, I watched Colonel Lu's actions and seemed to suspect that the nobles in the city colluded with outsiders to murder King Qi. How do you see this? Wang Shiji asked in confusion. Wang Chengchao snorted coldly, I usually ask you to read more poetry and books. You never listen to it. Now you are ignorant. The assassination of King Qi is so obscure, but Lu Fei is publicizing it with great fanfare. What is this? Wang Shiji shrank his head in fright. No wonder, but who is it? If King Qi dies, it will not be good for us. King Qi is faint and doesn't know how to manage fiefs. This is a good thing for us. I believe that the other three just want to use King Qi just like us, not to murder King Qi. Wang Chengchao pondered. The assassination of King Qi also puzzled him. When the news came, he immediately withdrew the family banquet and sent someone out to inquire about the news. After a while, Wang Chengchao said, early tomorrow morning, bring a gift to visit King Qi, and show the closeness of our Wang family and King Qi. Wang Shiji nodded, remembering something, and he said, by the way, Dad, you asked me to go to the equipment department, and I went too. At that time, King Qi seemed to be teaching the craftsmen what to make. This briquettes and iron are used for this. Well, you and I both know about King Qi's ability. I can't make any waves. I just sent you to worry about whether the barbarians are going to invade. So the equipment department wants to build weapons. If not, don't stare at it anymore. It's enough to win over him. Wang Chengchao looked like he was scheming at the same time. The Wei family, the Qin family, and the Sun family and King Zhao also talked about it. The next day, all four families sent their children to visit Prince Qi's mansion. Brother Wang, Brother Wei, Brother Sun, Brother Qin, why are you so polite? Early in the morning, Xiao Ming was awakened by Jin Dafu. When he woke up, he realized that it was the local nobles who came to visit him. Needless to say, this large and small gift, Wang Shiji, Wei Qing, Sun Dong, Qin Mu, who are known as the Four Evils in King Zhao, are all in place. All four of them were dressed as scholars, wearing blue, red, black, and green long gowns respectively. Wang Shiji was pale and ill, Wei Qing was strong and dark, Sun Dongbei was plump and and Qin Mu was tall and thin. The four of them standing together really looked like a ridge and a peak, with different heights and distances. His Royal Highness. In the same way, when they saw Xiao Ming, the four of them all showed mean smiles. In the Great Yu Kingdom, ordinary people could not afford to read books, but the children of the aristocratic family must be famous. All four of them have read books, so it can be said that they are all scholars. Because there are not many scholars in King Zhao, the four call themselves the Four Talents of King Zhao, but in the eyes of the common people, they are nothing more than four evils. Dafu, give me a seat. Zizi was busy receiving gifts, and when Dafu Jin heard the news, he remembered that the four young masters were still standing, and immediately asked someone to bring chairs. His Royal Highness, my little brother heard that His Highness was assassinated yesterday, and I was worried. I didn't sleep all night, so I came to visit His Highness this morning. Wang Shiji looked worried, as if his own father was seriously ill. Brother Wang, it's too fake. What worries me the most is me. Not only did the younger brother not sleep all night, but he also asked the servants to prepare a wooden stake and hacked it 1,000 times as an assassin to relieve the hatred in the younger brother's heart. Wei Qing has always claimed to be both civil and military, and has developed a lot of muscles. Brother Wei is too superficial. Your Highness, this time my father asked my younger brother to specially send a 100-year-old ginseng to come over, and he turned it over to His Highness to make up for his body. Sun Dong's face shook with fat, very sincere at this time. Qin Mu showed a look of disdain. He shook the paper fan lightly and said, Your Highness, they are all too vulgar. I thought about it for a night last night. In order to relieve your Highness's worries, I thought of an excellent place. Isn't it Zhao Mai? The three of them despised at the same time. I have to say that the former Xiao Ming had a good relationship with the four scumbags, so the four of them laughed and cursed in front of him without any scruples. Although Xiao Ming now puts the eradication of the evil of the wealthy in the first place, but now he has to pretend to be the same as before. Whether it is modern or ancient, the exchange of interests is actually very simple. Basically, there are brothers on the wine table, and knives are used under the wine table. On the surface, everyone still wants to be peaceful. However, what Qin Mu said about me, he moved Xiao Ming's heart to King Zhao, where he is now, is the later King Zhao city, and the location is not much different. King Zhao belongs to half mountain and half plain terrain. It is located at the northern foot of Yimen Mountain and Yishan Mountain. The reserves of limestone and iron ore are the largest in the south of Qingzhou City. A river flows around the city, which is the Mi River in Kinmu's mouth. Before the advent of the steam engine, water power could be said to be the most important natural force among the people. Besides the Mi River in Qingzhou, there are also the Yang River and Zhaoqing River in the north. These three rivers eventually flow into the Bohai Bay. Now he teaches craftsmen how to make lathes, but it doesn't mean that steam engines can be built right away. These lathes are just to facilitate the manufacture of various accessories, and the craftsmen will need a period of grinding before they can make steam engines. After all, the steam engine was developed on the basis of mature craftsmen, but before that, he can give these craftsmen some opportunities to practice, that is, to make some traditional tools, at this level of technology in the late Tang and early Song dynasty. It is equivalent to the practical equipment of the Ming dynasty, and many of these devices are related to water. Xiao Ming has always wanted to go to these three rivers to have a look. At this time, he said, Brother Qin's proposal is good, let's go to the Mi River. Chapter 14 Coal Ball Furnace. Your Highness, this is not right. Jin Dafu knew that Xiao Ming would not be able to sit still when the four came. After all, Xiao Ming was playful and could not stand the four of them in the past. But Lord Jin, don't worry. This time we have brought a lot of servants and servants. With our respect for His Highness, wouldn't we still harm him? Qin Mu reassured Jin Dafu. Xiao Ming stood up at this time and walked out. Let's go. I'll let Captain Lu follow. He doesn't have any friends here, and only these wine and meat friends can talk about some interesting things. Otherwise it will be really suffocating. There is no problem with Colonel Lu following him. Jin Dafu felt relieved. Now surrounded by the four of Wang Shiji, Xiao Ming rode out of the south of the city in the carriage of Wang Shiji's family and went straight to the Mi River pier. On the pier, a painting boat is moored, and the green Mi River rolls away from west to east, with the momentum of a big river flowing eastward. Xiao Ming was slightly surprised. He understood that in ancient times, because the natural environment was not destroyed, the water flow of the river was very large, but this Mi River is comparable to the contemporary Beijing-Hangzhou Canal. Your Highness. Qin Mu made an inviting gesture. Among the four noble families in Qingzhou, the Wang family mainly deals in coal and iron, the Wei family mainly deals in cloth, silk and satin, the Sun family is mainly engaged in ceramic smelting, and the Qin family is in control of water transportation. The painting boat in front of him is not very gorgeous. In Xiao Ming's opinion, compared to modern times, he has not seen anything gorgeous so far, but simplicity is everywhere at this time. There was a small table in the painting boat, with a few dishes of side dishes on it, and a jar of wine on it. A charcoal basin is burning under the table, and the season is about to enter into winter, which means it is slightly cold, but although the painting boat is warm, there is a faint smell of coal. His Royal Highness, in order to shock you, I specially prepared green ant wine this time, as well as this mutton, tempeh, chrysanthemum, sweet and sour crucian carp. Qin Mu was familiar. Xiao Ming glanced at what could be described as the standard of a luxurious meal, and sighed in his heart that he was such a failure as a prince. Qin Mu's life was more comfortable than his. However, there is no way to do it. The Qin family's water transportation business travels to and from all parts of the Great Yu country, and naturally they can buy all kinds of things that Qingzhou does not have to enjoy. Wang Shiji clapped his hands and said with a smile, following Brother Qin, you can't do without good food and wine. It's not like me waiting, you can only eat some rough food. Brother Wang broke me. The cane sugar for the sweet and sour crucian carp was specially purchased by my father when the boatman was in Chang'an. The same is true for this vegetable oil. It cost dozens of silver cars, otherwise there would be no sweet and sour crucian carp today. Sun Dong has always been the most gluttonous. He said, Brother Qin, can you come back a little bit more next time? The steamed buns, radishes and leeks are too monotonous all day long, which is really greedy. Xiao Ming couldn't help drooling in his mouth. He couldn't help it. Compared with the abundance of modern food, this place was really horrible in his memory. Potatoes, corn, tomatoes, and peanuts have not yet been introduced today. The variety of vegetables is very monotonous, basically celery, radish, leeks, spinach, lettuce, eggplant, and these things are rarely planted, because the common people can't eat food, and who will grow vegetables? These things are basically eaten by rich businessmen and powerful people. The five people sat around the small table. The boatman shook the oars, and the boat slowly went into the river. I have to say that the environment here is still very beautiful. The two sides of the Mi River are covered with the green fields, which are like an oil painting. There are dense water plants on both sides of the river, reeds form forests, wild ducks and egrets can be seen everywhere. While enjoying the scenery, Qin Mu poured Xiao Ming a glass of green ant wine. Immediately, A sour taste of rice wine rushed into the nose. In Xiaoming's opinion, this green ant wine was really of low quality because this green ant wine is freshly brewed, the lees have not been filtered clean, and the lees are green, so it is called green ant wine. Xiaoming could still drink this kind of wine in the past, but it is really hard for Xiaoming to swallow now. However, there's always no strong. He still took a few sips and ate his first stir-fry here. Sweet and sour crucian carp. The painting boat went down the Mi River. While enjoying the scenery, Xiaoming was also observing the situation on both sides of the Mi River in the Great Yu Kingdom. Fertile fields are basically the fields on both sides of the river, because it is easy to irrigate. He took a look and saw that there were few irrigation tools such as water wheels on both sides of the Mi River. Seeing Xiaoming looking at both sides of the Mi River from time to time, Wang Shiji asked, "Your Highness seems to have something on his mind during this trip. I wonder if I can tell my idiot brother." Xiaoming was thinking about how to improve the hydraulic irrigation facilities in the fief, and he was naturally unwilling to tell Wang Shiji about this. This is when he saw the charcoal pot burning under the table, remembered something, and said, "I don't have any worries, but the craftsmen of the equipment department are making a fun thing, which is 100 times stronger than this charcoal pot. I don't know if you are interested." Oh? Wang Shiji looked surprised. His Royal Highness was busy in the equipment department that day. Is it because of this thing? The three of Qin Mu also showed interest. Qin Mu said, "Since that's the case, we've also swam the Mi River. Why don't we go and see what His Highness said about a novelty?" Wei Qing and Sun Dong applauded in unison. Yesterday, when Xiaoming taught the craftsman the knowledge of lathes, the craftsman made him a very practical tool. Today this is the modern coal ball stove. After living in the palace for a few days, he felt awkward looking at the firewood that the servants were burning every day. Therefore, nothing else was manufactured, but the coal ball furnace was explained in advance. Seeing that these sons and daughters of the wealthy family were more happy than his own prince, Xiaoming felt unhappy, which fully shows that the economy of King Zhao is now in their hands. On the other hand, King Zhao's taxation is getting worse year by year. As for why, it is naturally their tax evasion. This Qin Mu said a few dozen taels of silver in a relaxed manner. And his palace did not dare to say such a big thing. Now that he has the technology library, he doesn't need to squeeze their money out with some novel things. How can he have the money to build his own government-run economy? During this trip to the Mi River, Xiaoming had a basic understanding of the irrigation conditions on both sides of the Mi River. He said, "If that's the case, let's go to the equipment department to have a look." Qin Mu immediately turned the boat around, and the five returned to the dock. When he got ashore, Xiaoming tightened his clothes. Winter was coming soon, and the weather was getting colder. The cold briquettes could come in handy at this time, and he was not afraid that they would not buy them, especially the Wang family. The cold briquettes and iron ore are so expensive to sell to him. Can he get around them? At this time, in the equipment department, a coal ball furnace with iron sheets was produced. This is a simple briquette stove. Inside the iron sheet is a baked clay in a ring, and the chassis is a mesh iron sheet. The styling doesn't look as modern and fancy, but it's basically functional. The craft of the coal ball stove is very simple, and this is the first practice object that Xiaoming gave to the craftsman. When the five people arrived at the equipment department, they saw exactly such a coal pellet stove. "Your Highness, what is this?" Wang Shiji asked in confusion. Xiaoming smiled slightly and asked Chen Wenlong, "Has the briquettes been made?" "Go back to His Highness, it's made, and it's drying outside now," Chen Wenlong replied. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15. Not Stupid. "Your Highness, what is this briquettes?" Wang Shiji was puzzled. Xiaoming showed a mysterious smile and gestured to Chen Wenlong with his eyes. Chen Wenlong understood and sent a craftsman outside to bring the briquettes made. This briquettes is also called briquettes. It is 10 centimeters in cylindrical shape and is full of round holes. In the world where Xiaoming lived, this kind of briquettes was very popular before the 1970s and 1980s, and almost every family had it. Boiling water, cooking, heating. It's versatile, very practical, and fairly simple to make. Facing this kind of thing that never appeared, Wang Shiji and the four were confused at the same time, just waiting for Xiaoming's next explanation. "Everyone, look closely. This is a coal ball furnace, which is actually a cylinder, divided into two parts by an iron pestle. The upper part is the furnace, and the lower part is the air inlet. There is a damper outside. There is less gas entering and less fire. This briquettes are ground and recast from briquettes, and the combination of the two will have a magical effect. After Xiaoming finished speaking, he did it himself, took charcoal and wheat straw to start the fire, then placed two briquettes at the bottom, and held a long clay plastic bobbin as a chimney to stand on top. The four Wang Shiji stood together and whispered, watching Xiaoming's movements with all their attention. After a while, the fire started and the briquettes were ignited. Then Xiaoming stuffed the second briquettes into the stove and took down the small chimney at the same time. At this time, the blue flame in the furnace was burning vigorously. His Royal Highness, this is not much different from a charcoal basin. Sundong, who has always been outspoken among the four, said first. Qin Mu rolled his eyes, tapped his fan in the palm of his hand, and said with dissatisfaction with Sundong, Brother Sun's words are not good. Since it can make His Highness so concerned, it must be something extraordinary. Brother Qin's kung fu is really getting better and better. It's amazing. I think Brother Sun's words have some truth. Wei Qing said sternly. If Sundong is outspoken, then Wei Qing has a bit of a head. As far as Xiaoming knows, his father bought a lot of money for Wei Qing to pass the township test. As for him, he likes sticks more than poetry. Wang Shiji pondered for a while, then showed a look of contempt to the three of them. If you talk about this coal pellet stove, the three of you can't understand it as well as I do. What your highness said about this coal pellet stove is really very practical. It is more practical than a charcoal pot. Much more convenient. Brother Wang still has an opinion. As expected, he is in the coal and iron business. Xiaoming praised Wang Shiji has always been a person who lays eggs for a broken basket. He is triumphant, like a rooster that has won a fight. Your highness, this thing is really good. I wonder where your highness learned this thing, Xiaoming said indifferently. Speaking of this, it's too long. The housekeeper of the palace bought a book from an overseas businessman a few days ago. I saw a lot of novelties in it, so I carefully studied it. At this time, Xiaoming's identity is the advantage of the prince. He only needs to make up an excuse to get rid of the equipment to be developed in the future. If it were ordinary people, these wealthy and powerful families would have to figure out how to kill people and kill their mouths. Wang Shiji was dubious, but Xiaoming said so, and he didn't dare to ask in detail. After all, it was one thing for them to get along well with Xiaoming, and it was another matter for them to get along well. His Royal Highness is really a noble person who has God's help. This coal ball stove is really good. Can your highness ask the equipment department to build one for me? Wang Shiji, Qin Mu and the others exchanged glances. This coal pellet stove is quite novel, and they really want to buy it and try it out. Xiaoming is waiting for the fish to take the bait. It is impossible for this coal pellet stove to be popularized in the homes of the common people, because ordinary people cannot burn coal and can only burn some wood and the like. But the big family is different. The psychology of any wealthy family is the same, that is, they like to hunt for oddities. It's not impossible, it's just that this coal ball furnace consumes iron and coal. My Prince Qi's mansion has always been very poor. Wang Shiji, a person who is like a fine man, immediately understood. Your highness, it's easy to say. You say how much silver taels this coal ball furnace is. We will do it. Qin Mu and the three nodded in succession. They did not dare to take advantage of Xiaoming's hands. After all, Xiaoming was also a vassal king. That's it. 50 taels of silver for a briquette stove. Xiaoming Lion opened his mouth. Wang Shiji was shocked. This King Qi really dared to ask for it. In his opinion, although this coal ball stove is much more convenient than the charcoal basin, it is not irreplaceable. He said, His Royal Highness, 50 taels is really too much. Think about it, who doesn't keep a servant in a big family? It's a little troublesome to boil water, cook and warm wine, but after all, you don't need to do it yourself. Buy this for 50 taels and go back. Why don't you buy a maid? Don't make things difficult for me. The three of Qin Mu nodded at the same time, and Sundong said, but Brother Wang reminded me that this coal pellet stove is a business, and it can be sold to some wealthy households who have some money in their hands but can't afford to support maids. Xiaoming glanced at the four of them, thinking that the ancients were not stupid, and they were meticulous in their calculations. They couldn't make a lot of money by just making something out of it. The first round of flickering failed. Xiaoming called Chen Wenlong to ask about the cost of the briquettes. Wang Shiji's estimate is very accurate, and the cost is basically around 2 grains of silver. After all, coal and iron are still very expensive. I can't find the big one, but Sundong's proposal is feasible. He made this coal pellet stove to make money. Otherwise, where did he get the money to build up the industrial base? And he couldn't loot all the wealthy households in Qingzhou. Brother Sun is still brilliant. Xiaoming praised at this time. Qin Mu had a clever move and said, Your Highness, my family is in the water transportation business. I go to all places in the Great Yu Kingdom. Why don't I give this coal pellet stove business to my family and let my family sell it? This matter is indeed the most suitable for Brother Qin. Wei Qing said. Brother Qin's words are exactly what I want, and you all understand that the taxation in Qingzhou is not as good as a year. If it goes on like this, Qi Wangfu will soon be drinking the wind and dew. Although you often help the Wangfu, but after all, it is not long-term plan. Xiao Ming said with a long sigh. At this time, the four of them all showed embarrassed expressions. Naturally, they knew exactly where the crux of the tax issue is. It's just that none of the wealthy and powerful families in the Great Yu Kingdom are holding the money in their own hands now that King Qi wants to do business by himself to subsidize the palace. This is understandable. I wonder which of the princes does not have a group of merchants under his command. These merchants offer silver taels every year in exchange for business convenience, and some profitable businesses are even run directly by the prince's cronies. Similarly, they also offered some silver taels to King Qi every year, but King Qi was really incompetent, and these silver taels were only used for enjoyment. Even the mines that the other princes held tightly in their hands were ignored by Kao Ian. Chapter 16. The Four Families Dispute. Since this is the case, Qin Mu is even more responsible. As long as His Highness does not let our Qin family suffer, Qin Mu has a righteous look. It's just that he knew in his heart that if this novel coal pellet stove could be successfully shot, it might bring huge profits to the Qin family. Qin Mu was eating alone, but Wang Shiji was unhappy. He said, "Brother Qin, you must be greedy. How can your Qin family take advantage of this opportunity to make a fortune?" Then, Wang Shiji looked at Xiao Ming and said, "Go back to your Highness. There is also a horse team in the idiot's house. After all, there are some places that Qin Mu can't get to by the waterway, and the rest of our Wang family can help His Highness. Yes, our Sun family also has a horse team." Sun Dong echoed. Wei Qing and Qin Mu looked at each other and looked slightly unhappy. These four people are arguing with me, and Xiao Ming is watching carefully, and he is secretly happy. Now it is obvious that Wang Shiji and Sun Dong are helping each other. While Qin Mu and Wei Qing are standing together, it can be seen that the four giants in Qingzhou are not monolithic. The surface is calm and the waves are calm, but the inside is intrigue. Xiao Ming is not afraid of them fighting, but he is afraid that they will not fight. In this way, he can profit from it. Everyone, stop arguing. You are all the people this king trusts the most, and this king doesn't want to be biased. In this way, this king has an idea. Since all four of you want to take over this coal ball furnace, it's better to compete fairly. I don't care how much silver taels you sell to other people, but I will give you the higher price for buying coal briquettes from me. Xiao Ming rolled his eyes and continued, "For the sake of fairness, each of you will prepare a secret letter tomorrow. This letter contains the price of purchasing coal pellet stoves from this king. When it is opened in public, the one with the highest price will receive the price." How? This is a solution. Your Highness is wise. Wang Shiji bowed his hands to Xiao Ming, but looked at Qin Mu provocatively. It means who is afraid of whom, then do as His Highness said. Qin Mu did not back down. Xiao Ming was overjoyed. Originally, he didn't have much hope for the gas stove, but now that the four families are fighting within each other, he can take a little more advantage. In order to let the four of you understand the convenience of this gas stove, you can take this sample back and show it to everyone. Xiao Ming still maintained his superficial calmness, so that they could not see his own psychology. Wang Shiji bowed his hands to Xiao Ming, and let the accompanying servants walk out with the stove. The other three also left hand in hand. Your Highness, do you want the craftsmen to build the coal pellet stove now? Chen Longwen asked with a smile. He was watching the whole process. Originally, what Wang Shiji and Sun Dong said about a coal pellet stove was worthless, but he didn't expect Qin Mu to be too greedy, causing cracks to appear in the four companies that were advancing and retreating in the same way. Xiao Ming glanced at Chen Wenlong sideways. "What do you think? You won't have much free time in the future, His Royal Highness. I'm not afraid of being busy, but I'm afraid of being idle." Chen Longwen expressed himself at the right time. Xiao Ming nodded. "When the money arrives, we will start working on the water-lathe workshop." After explaining the matter of the coal ball stove, Xiao Ming returned to the palace under the escort of Lu Fei. At this time, Wang Shiji also returned to the Wang's house with a gas stove. For this, the four families gathered again at the Wang's house. "Shiji, do you think His Highness asked the equipment division to make this thing?" Wang Chengchao said, looking at the burning coal ball stove. "There won't be fakes, and I haven't seen this kind of thing in other places in Daiyu." Wang Shiji said. Wang Yuanwei, "What kind of coal pellet stove burns coal? What do you think?" asked Qin Chuanian. Who was Qin Mu's father? Wang Changchao twitched his beard lightly, and Qin Chuan said that he was very useful, even though this member was just a name that wealthy businessmen exchanged for money, but the status of merchants is diminishing, and this title can also be used as a consolation. This briquette stove is really interesting. It is very convenient to boil water, cook vegetables, warm wine, and heat, and the size of the fire can be controlled at will. The most important point is that it is not easy to extinguish, and the briquettes below are burned out. Just replace the briquettes, if you want. This coal ball furnace can never go out. What Wang Yuanwei said makes sense. It would be nice to have such a thing in the house in winter. A thin old man sat beside Qin Chuanayan, but it was Sun Yuanzi, Sun Dong's father. Since everyone thinks that this coal pellet stove is good, then according to His Highness's method, each of the four of us will write a secret letter, so that we don't have to quarrel over who owns the coal pellet stove. Wei Qing's father Wei Hong said loudly. He and Wei Qing are very similar, both are red-faced men. Because of Wei Hong's words, the courtyard fell silent for a while, and the four families looked at each other, each with their own thoughts. This coal pellet stove has been burned in Wang's house since it was brought, and he has a mind to worry about it. Since this is the case, Wang will not keep everyone, no matter who wins the operation of this coal pellet stove tomorrow. I hope everyone will not hurt the peace. Since that's the case, we're leaving. Wei Hong was the first to stand up to leave. Then Sun Yuanzi and Qin Chuanayan left one after another. Everyone dispersed. Wang Shiji said at this time, Dad, this coal ball stove is quite novel, but I don't think the price will exceed 3 taels of silver. Hey, you said 3 taels, but this time even if it's 5 taels, we have to take over the operation of the coal pellet stove. Wang Chengchao said with narrowed eyes. Why? Wang Shiji was puzzled. Let me ask you, what is our Wang family selling? Wang Chengchao looked like he hated iron coal. Wang Shiji suddenly woke up. Dad, you mean that if this coal pellet stove can sell well, our coal? Wang Chengchao laughed. That's right, I counted it just now. If this briquette stove burns for a day, it will take at least 6 briquettes. If every household in the Great Yu country uses a gas stove, won't our Wang family be rich enough to rival the country? Wang Shiji was stunned for a moment, then laughed loudly. Father, is His Royal Highness King Qi really our lucky star? Wang Chengchao twitched his beard with a smile, put away his smile and said solemnly, Shiji, you need to go to His Highness alone to talk to you about something. Father, you ordered. Wang Shiji respectfully said. He was afraid of Wang Chengchao since he was a child. Whether the briquettes are operated by our Wang family or whoever runs this briquettes furnace, it has little impact on us. The biggest thing is the business of the briquettes. You see, the briquettes sent by King Qi are very regular, and the holes inside are all the same in size, radius and location. It fits very well with the briquettes furnace, and it can't be put in if it is slightly different, and the briquettes are pulverized and stuck together, so they are very hard and difficult to manufacture. Do you mean to ask from His Highness how the briquettes are produced? No, King Qi is for money this time. I want you to buy this method. The flame of ambition flashed in Wang Chengchao's eyes. Chapter 17 Warmth. His Royal Highness, do you think the King, Wei, Sun and Qin will come to buy our coal pellet stove? Qi Wangfu, in front of Xiao Ming's bedroom is a quaint garden, clear water, stone bridges, flower beds, and a vermilion pavilion with hooked railings standing next to the water. At this time, dusk was approaching, the palace was a little hazy, and Xiao Ming was eating in the pavilion. In front of him is a gas stove. Today, the equipment department produced 2, one was taken by Wang Shiji, and it took the rest of the night to take shape. Chen Wenlong didn't dare to delay, so he sent it over. Hey, Your Highness is talented. If they don't buy such a fetish, it can only be said that they have no vision. Jin Dafu was cheerful. In the past 5 years, Xiao Ming has basically done 3 things, eating, sleeping, and playing. This time, it is rare to be able to create this thing and increase some expenses for the palace. In his opinion, if King Qi can read more, it will be even more good. Aster pounded Xiao Ming's leg while looking at Xiao Ming. Before coming to King Zhao, King Qi was notorious. They walked all the way, cried all the way, and felt sad in their hearts. But since she arrived at the palace and served for a few days, she found that King Qi was not as bad as the legends said. The sadness in their hearts gradually faded. Moreover, King Qi is the son of concubine Zhen, and concubine Zhen treats them very leniently. Xiao Ming has been approachable to them these days, which makes them feel a little closer. My servant thinks that it is brilliant for His Highness to let the 4 of them write their prices in envelopes and hand them over. Xiaoyun chuckled, 2 dimples on her cheeks. Xiao Ming sat on the stone bench. He just explained to them how to use the briquettes on weekdays. Xiao Ming's diet and daily life are all arranged by two maids, and they immediately understood the convenience of this guest of why. Xiao Ming asked. Aster said in a crisp voice, if His Highness clearly asked them to talk about the price, with the nature of the four of them, they would definitely collude to lower the price. Now that they go back separately, no one knows the price of the other party. In business, we must compete with each other, and let us enjoy the benefits of the fishermen. Well, that's right, that's exactly what this king wants. Xiao Ming glanced at Aster. Aster's analysis is very thorough. In fact, this model is the modern version of the bidding quotation. In order to achieve the goal, the bidder must naturally show the greatest sincerity. Luluo envied, Sister Ziwen is so smart, why didn't I think of it? Because you're stupid. Xiao Ming raised his head and smirked at her. Luluo blushed suddenly, lowered her head and dared not speak. Seeing Aster, her eyes rolled around, and the hand holding Xiao Ming's thigh secretly exerted her strength. Ouch! Xiao Ming felt as if he had been bitten by a mosquito on his leg, and couldn't help crying. Aster hurriedly stood up. Your Highness, atonement. Is Aster getting too heavy? The two little maids are charming and beautiful, and a man has to fantasize about it, not to mention that they still have their own labels, and it is understandable to take a small advantage occasionally. When he came back to his senses, he remembered that so many people were watching. This is ancient times, not the 21st century that can be embraced on the road. Cough cough. Xiao Ming coughed. Aster seemed to be respectful, but he could see that it was intentional. This girl is smart, but he didn't want her to develop the habit of playing tricks on herself. He deliberately smirked and said, it's very simple to ask this king to forgive you. Well, it's cold today, why don't you come and give this king a warm quilt tonight? Aster was stunned. She obviously did not expect Xiao Ming to make such a move. Since I don't speak, this king will acquiesce. Aster is the most considerate. Xiao Ming stood up with a smile. Dafu, I'll leave this coal ball stove to you. Our palace is not very staffed. With this, we can take it easy. Yes, Your Highness. Jin Dafu replied, and at the same time glanced at Aster worriedly. Now Xiao Ming can't figure out the number of ways this Aster actually used his own cleverness to play the king of keys. Xiao Ming turned around and went back to the bedroom. Luluo grabbed Aster's hand and said, Sister, what should I do? Are you really going? Aster turned pale, and now her head was not enough. Jin Dafu sighed and said at this time, Aster, you are clever, but you are mistaken by cleverness. In this way, I will teach you a way. Aster and Luluo listened carefully, and Aster said, is this okay? Then do you have any other way? Disobeying orders and disobeying, this is to be dealt with by family law. Jin Dafu said at this time. Luluo grabbed Aster's hand and said, Sister, just try it. With a sigh, Aster nodded. It seems that this King Qi is a smart person. She can't underestimate him any longer. Back in the bedroom, Xiao Ming did not sleep, but lit a candle and drew a drawing with a brush. Once he got the money from the four, his next plan was a hydrolathe workshop. This is also the reason why he wants to go around the Mi River. One is to investigate the sentiments of the people, and the other is to find a suitable location. However, this batch of hydraulic lathes is enough for processing wood and general iron accessories. But it is still not enough for processing hard steel. The reason is that the tool strength of the lathe is not enough without a strong enough alloy tool. Machining steel is basically impossible, and alloys need nickel, tungsten, molybdenum, cobalt, aluminum, titanium, boron, zirconium and other trace elements, but these elements are not readily available. Although he was mentally prepared, Xiao Ming felt that the difficulties he was facing were still very big. It was really not easy to start from poverty and nothing. However, there is no lack of solutions. The technology library also contains the knowledge of each mineral, the location of the ore, the associated ore, the color, and the method of finding ore. He needs to find a trusted professor to find these metal mines, because it is not just about alloys. The next step is to mine mines by himself. Now his fief is the contemporary Shandong area, which is rich in minerals, and there is a large gold mine near Laizhou. If it is used reasonably, it can also provide himself with a lot of financial support. So mining is very important to him. Everything has to go hand in hand. As he was thinking, he felt someone tiptoe into his room. Turning around, he saw a dark figure get into his bed. Aster, Xiao Ming called out, this girl is really obedient. He just frightened her, but he didn't expect to actually come to warm the quilt for himself. Chapter 18. The dim candlelight flickered, illuminating a small space outside the dormitory. The night was as dark as ink, always giving people an indescribable terror. On nights like this, it is always easy to recall the horror stories of grandma scaring children. Seeing that Aster didn't answer, Xiao Ming called again, But the person in the bed still didn't respond, which made Xiaoming think for a while he has come through, and there are many ghosts and gods in this ancient times, especially in such an environment. It is more TV series than TV series. Aster, don't scare this king, or this king will be rude. Xiaoming's voice trembled. He was not afraid of this person, but he was afraid of the rumors of these strange forces. The suffocating silence in the bedroom answered him. This time Xiaoming is not calm. There must be someone who is bulging in the quilt, not a ghost. What if it is an assassin? The assassination was not a few days away. Although Xiaoming came to this world as a prince, in his heart, he was still lonely and afraid. It is normal for a person to face a completely unfamiliar environment and environment. Dafu. Xiaoming still chose not to approach. This was also for his own safety. Come on. This shout came very timely, and Jin Dafu rushed in. His Royal Highness, what's wrong with you? In his memory, the only thing Xiaoming believed was Jin Dafu. He pointed to his bed and said, "Go, lift the quilt and see what's hidden inside." Jin Dafu said strangely, "His Royal Highness, of course there are asters in here. Didn't you say let her warm the quilt for you?" This girl knows that today is a bit arrogant, and does not dare to disobey His Highness's order. Really? Then why didn't she dare to answer the king's words? Xiaoming calmed down a little, and couldn't help being a little angry, which frightened him. Jin Dafu said, "His Royal Highness, this Aster and Lulu used to be the people around the Empress. I have never encountered this kind of warm quilt. This is the first time. I am a little nervous." Xiaoming frowned, and none of this made him worry. He said to Jin Dafu, "Go, let her go back. It's enough to annoy this king." As soon as his voice fell, there was a sudden cry from the quilt, and then Xuan lifted the quilt and said while crying, "Your Highness, Xuan knows it's wrong, and you shouldn't provoke your Highness by playing tricks today. It's just that Xuan did this for the sake of the reputation of His Highness. The servants of the province are chatting their tongues, and if Pang Changshi knows about it again, it will definitely be reported to His Highness again, and the matter of the Empress begging His Highness to be the president next year will probably be delayed again." "That's right, Your Highness." Jin Dafu sighed. "This Chang'an misses His Highness the most. Is it the Empress? I hope that Your Highness will take pains to remember the Empress." Speaking of concubine Zhen, Xiaoming suddenly felt a little bitter, and he had to say that Xiaoming was no longer a thing. Concubine Zhen always loved him very much. Every time Xiaoming made a mistake, Concubine Zhen would always endure Xiao Wangxuan's scolding and ask him for mercy. HMPH, that's all. You all go out. This king is just warning you. Use the right place to be smart, understand? Xiaoming said to Zhu, and Aster gave a gift of happiness, and the pear blossoms brought rain. "Yes, Your Highness, Aster remembers it, and I will never dare again next time." Jin Dafu glared at Aster. "If you don't leave, you will actually make His Highness angry." Aster wiped her tears, bowed again, turned and disappeared into the night. Xiaoming said to Jin Dafu at this time, "You guys, come together to deal with me. Don't you think I can't see it? Hey, Your Highness is wise. I know that I can't hide it from you, but Your Highness really wants to think about the Empress. Now the Emperor's health is getting worse. If the Emperor returns with a crane, the Empress will no longer be able to support her in the palace. No help, in case someone mentions the matter of the burial at that time. Niang Niang." At this point, Jin Dafu's eyes were red, and he seemed to be extremely worried. Who dares? An anger surged out of Xiaoming's intuition, which seemed to touch the most painful thread in his memory. When the emperors of all dynasties died, there would be concubines and concubines buried, and at that time, when the mother was honored by the child, the people who were buried would basically be among the concubines who had no support. Jin Dafu continued, "His Royal Highness, the old slave is talking a lot today. Since His Highness became seriously ill, the old servant saw that His Highness has grown a lot. Originally, the old servant was already desperate, and when the Empress went, the old servant also followed. But now the old slave believes that His Royal Highness can turn the Empress into peace, as long as His Highness is diligent in government and loves the people, and is prosperous and powerful. By then no matter who ascends the throne, he will weigh your weight." Xiaoming nodded. Jin Dafu's sincerity can be said to be from the bottom of his heart. He now occupies Xiaoming's body, so it is Xiaoming. Because he came to this world, he belongs to this world. Jin Dafu's words made him suddenly realize this. There are still people in this world who need him, and there are people who he needs. I understand your painstaking efforts. When I was ill, I was also regretting this lack in the past. It will not be the same as before." Xiaoming solemnly said to Jin Dafu, "Your Highness." Jin Dafu's tears rolled in his eyes. Xiaoming smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Jin Dafu now feels like a 1,000-year-old iron tree has blossomed, But in this way, Xiao Ming can be his true self. Staring at Jin Dafu twice, Xiao Ming suddenly felt a little strange. He only remembered that in the memory of Xiao Ming's birth, this Jin Dafu had always followed concubine Zhen, and in his opinion, Jin Dafu's loyalty to concubine Zhen seemed to be too much. He couldn't help asking, "Dafu, why are you so heartfelt to our mother and son?" Xiao Ming asked this way because he was completely worried that concubine Zhen was the one who gave Xiao Wangxun a green hat, and he was afraid that one day Jin Dafu suddenly cried and said to him, "I am your father." Startled for a moment, Jin Dafu said, "His Royal Highness, my father was framed to satirize the current sage because he wrote a poem. If it wasn't for the mother's intercession, the old slave family would have been beheaded all over the house, instead of being sent as a slave. I was sent to the palace, and I was often bullied by the little eunuchs in the palace, but it was the empress who placed me beside me." Xiao Ming almost blurted out, "A eunuch? He now understands it. Why are there literal prisons in every dynasty?" Xiao Ming murmured, and he said, "So that's the case. One day, this king will definitely rehabilitate your family." "Old slave, thank your highness." Jin Dafu looked excited and knelt down. "You and I, the master and the servant, work together. Why should I say thank you? Get up. This king has an important matter for you now." He is completely at ease with Jin Dafu. Chapter 19. Silver. It's winter, it's getting dark early, and it's just the equivalent of 8 o'clock in modern times for Xiao Ming, who didn't go to bed at 12 o'clock before. This time was just a time for recreation. He kept his pro-money and wealthy people for the sake of the mine. The construction of the fief needs several parallel, industrial base, agricultural base, minerals and chemistry are indispensable. After all, these things complement each other, especially chemistry and industry. These two especially cannot pull each other back, otherwise some industrial progress will not be realized. His Royal Highness means to let the old slave go to find the mine in person? Jin Dafu said. Xiao Ming nodded. Yes, the mines in the fief are not controlled by the Wang family, but the mines mined by the Wang family are only coal and iron. Now I need to ask you to find a variety of minerals. Once found, let the government pay for it. Let the government-operated mines firmly control the mines in our hands." Xiao Ming's words of remorse just now were only superficial, and now it's true. Jin Dafu said, "Your Highness, this old slave will definitely not disappoint His Highness." Xiao Ming nodded. "What I told you tonight, you must keep it secret and not tell anyone in advance." Jin Dafu nodded. Xiao Ming's thoughts moved slightly, and the huge technology library of Technology Spar came to mind again, and the geographical location of each mineral in this area appeared precisely at the same time. Prospecting methods for each ore emerged. Holding a pen, he explained to Jin Dafu and drew a picture with a writing brush, marking down the geographical location of the entire Shandong region and the location of the mines. Although this is an approximate location, there is still hope as long as you look for it patiently. Jin Dafu listened carefully. When Xiao Ming spoke, it seemed that a clear map appeared in his mind at the same time. The color of each ore and the characteristics near the ore seemed to have a picture generated in his mind. Xiao Ming Jiang. Jin Dafu listened. This candle was burned out and replaced. The two didn't stop until the next day, when Wang Shiji's palace begged to see him. "Dafu, how do you remember now?" Xiao Ming said. Jin Dafu seemed to be still in a trance state. "Your Highness, this old slave has never felt that learning is so fast." Xiao Ming nodded. "Since that's the case, let's put this ore prospecting on the agenda. If you don't know how, ask me again." After all, Xiao Ming went to the front hall, and Wang Shiji was still waiting for him. Jin Dafu looked at Xiao Ming and scratched his head, showing a puzzled look. "Strange, how does His Highness understand these things?" "Hey, who cares, as long as our Highness goes up in the front hall." Wang Shiji was sitting on the mahogany chair of His Royal Highness as if he had hemorrhoids. Wang Shiji's body twisted uncomfortably. His father's suggestion last night made him suddenly realize, and he saw an opportunity to make the Wang family a fortune in front of him. "Brother Wang, why did you come so early?" Xiao Ming yawned. He was sleepy now. Wang Shiji smiled and said, "Your Highness is so tired. Did something good happen last night?" "Hey, you can know it in your heart." Xiao Ming didn't deny it. He deliberately played sloppy eyes, and then he asked, "Why is Brother Wang alone here today?" Wang Shiji cupped his hands and said, "His Royal Highness, I came so early, I actually have something to ask your Highness." "Hey, I don't dare to ask for words. Brother Wang, just say it bluntly." Xiao Ming glanced at Wang Shiji and saw a trace of anxiety in his eyes. It seemed that what he asked for was very important to him. Looking left and right, seeing no one around, Wang Shiji said, "Your Highness, what my idiot asks for is His Highness's method of making briquettes." Xiao Ming's expression became serious. "Brother Wang, Don't think these briquettes are very novel, but the briquettes are the most important thing. You are now asking for the method of briquettes, right? Wang Shiji smiled and said, "Don't worry, Your Highness." At this time, he took out 10 banknotes from his sleeves and handed them to Xiaoming. "Brother Wang, what does this mean?" Xiaoming deliberately pretended to be crazy and sold stupid. Wang Shiji showed disdain for the briquettes yesterday, but now he is so diligent. There is only one possibility, that is, Wang Chengchao saw the value of the briquettes after all. Wang Shiji's IQ can make fun of Xiaoming before His Royal Highness. This is the silver tale for the acquisition of the method of making briquettes. My father said that, in addition to this silver note, 40% of the profits of the briquettes in the future will also be yours. Xiaoming rubbed the banknotes. There were 10 banknotes of 500 taels, a total of 5,000 taels. These 5,000 taels of silver are enough to buy horses and equipment for 10 cavalrymen, so it's not that Xiaoming doesn't know the importance of cavalry, but the financial resources of the fief can't afford it, and this does not include cavalry squires. Maintenance, equipment maintenance costs this. Xiaoming's brows furrowed. It was impossible to make him let go so easily. This business generally likes throwing stones to ask for directions. He believes that this is just a stone thrown by the Wang family, and Jade is still behind. Wang Shiji carefully observed Xiaoming's expression. Seeing that Xiaoming seemed to be hesitant, he sneered at this time. "Your Highness, Yudi almost forgot, there's more here." As he spoke, he also took out 10 silver notes from the other cuff, another 5,000 taels. "It's really a local tyrant," Xiaoming secretly said. It seems that Wang Chengchao has made a lot of money in the past 5 years. For Xiaoming, the method of making the briquettes is very simple, but it is actually a problem with the mold. This mold and equipment company has already been manufactured, and he's waiting for the Wang family to send him money. What he really cares about is the establishment of the industrial basis. For why he was confident that the Wang family would send money instead of imitating it. It was very simple, but who made him the prince? If he was really acting out because of this, it would be enough for the Wang family to drink apart. It's just that no one wants to break this balance now, since Brother Wang and the members are so kind. For the sake of our friendship for many years, I will resell you the manufacturing method of this briquettes. Xiaoming said, "Thank you, Your Highness." Wang Shiji was overjoyed. Xiaoming also laughed. What he earned this time was only technology fees, which is equivalent to modern patent money. After this incident, he must bring this technology patent matter into government affairs management. In this way, he only needs to sell patents to make a fortune in the future, and the rest of the hard work is left to these businessmen. And he doesn't have so many manpower and energy to manage them. Of course, he will still win the truly profitable business. Both of them got what they wanted and chatted happily. At this time, there were several announcements from outside the palace gate. It seemed that the remaining 3 had arrived. Xiaoming's heart was overjoyed, and the silver giver was here. Chapter 20. The First Snow of Crossing. Your Highness. Qin Mu entered the main hall first, followed by Sun Dong and Wei Qing. Seeing Wang Shiji's arrival, Qin Mu said in surprise, "Brother Wang was always late in the past. Why is he here so early today?" "Last night, because of the gas stove, I didn't sleep all night. I was anxious, and I came earlier today." Wang Shiji was guilty of being a thief and did not dare to look at Qin Mu. Qin Mu sneered. He believed that Wang Shiji was a ghost, but just by looking at Wang Shiji's thief-eyed appearance, he knew that his purpose in coming so early was not simple. Sun Dong looked at Wang Shiji, then glanced at Qin Mu, and said, "His Royal Highness is busy with official business, so let's not disturb His Highness here, or hand over our secret letters to His Highness." Wei Qing said in a loud voice, "That's right, now each takes out the secret letter and asks His Highness to tear it down in public. I believe His Highness is fair." Xiaoming smiled secretly. This Wei Qing put a high head on himself first, because he was afraid that Xiaoming would be biased. He said, "I have to go to the equipment department later. In that case, please give me the secret letter." Wang Shiji immediately submitted his letter to Xiaoming, and the other 3 also submitted it in turn. After sorting out the secret letters, Xiaoming opened them one by one. Wang Shiji's price was 5 taels, Sun Dong's was 3 taels, Wei Qing's was 3 taels, and Qin Mu's was 60 taels. "His Royal Highness, what's the result?" Qin Mu asked worriedly. This time the Qin family paid a lot of money. Xiaoming spread out all the 4 letters. This king didn't cheat. It seems that the management of this coal ball furnace is Qin Mu's. Wang Shiji looked unhappy. He didn't expect the Qin family to spend such a large amount of money, but for him, the briquettes were the most important thing, and the briquettes were not important. I'll give it up. Qin Mu stood up and bowed his hands to the three of them with a triumphant look. The expressions of Sun Dong and Wei Qing did not change much. They knew that they couldn't compare to the Qin family and the Wang family in this matter. The Wang family controls coal, and the Qin family controls water transportation. These are the advantages they don't have. Since Qin Mu has come out on top, then this matter is settled like this. This king will order the equipment department to produce it, and Brother Qin will come to pick up the goods every day. Xiao Ming said, "Thank you, Your Highness." Qin Mu was overjoyed. The matter of the coal pellet stove was settled. The four of them went separately, and they still needed to report the matter to their families. Counting the banknotes in his hand, Xiao Ming happily said, "Technology monopoly is the most profitable." As an engineering major, Xiao Ming is very aware of what it means to be backward in technology. In his era, if there was no technology, he would have to spend money to buy it from others. In this case, you have to give as much money as others say you need. Technological monopoly is definitely a huge profit. What he has in his mind now is unlimited technology, and when he gets all these technologies out, he will establish his own technology monopoly system. At that time, he can sit and wait to collect the money. On Jin Dafu's round face, his eyes were about to die. Since they came to King Zhao, their palace has never been so rich. Dafu, this is 1,000 taels. It's very difficult to find mines. It's the fee for you. Xiao Ming slapped the 2 silver notes in Jin Dafu's hand. Jin Dafu smiled even happier. His Royal Highness earned this money, and this old slave took it. Xiao Ming shook his head helplessly. There was no way. The palace used to be too poor. After accepting the banknote, Jin Dafu asked, "His Royal Highness, when I go out to look for mines, what about the affairs of the palace?" Xiao Ming glanced at him, and said lightly, "Don't you have an idea in your mind to protect Aster so much? Your Highness is still smart." The old slave can't hide his thoughts from His Highness. "This Lulo and Zuan are the people around the Empress and will not be detrimental to your Highness. Lulo is a timid girl and will definitely not be able to control the servants in the house. This Zuan has a fiery personality, and smart. It is more than enough to manage the palace." Jin Dafu said, "Then let her take care of it. You are my confidant. There may be a lot of things for you to deal with in the future. You can't always stick to the trivial matters of the palace." The word confidant made Jin Dafu excited for a while. Xiao Ming trusted him so much, and he was willing to go through fire and water. The matter of finding the mine is imminent. Xiao Ming explained some details to Jin Dafu. Today he is going to prepare, and he is going to go out tomorrow for the safety of Jin Dafu. Xiao Ming specially asked Lu Fei to draw 10 loyal cavalry soldiers to accompany him to protect him with silver in hand. Xiao Ming's first thing is naturally to hydraulic lay the workshop because the dignified vassal king enjoyed the ultimate privilege in his fief. Xiao Ming easily encircled a piece of land in the place where the Mi River was the most urgent, and no one dared to say anything then. He asked Chen Wenlong to post a notice to recruit craftsmen. This hydraulic workshop is 100 meters long and 15 meters wide, which is not a small project. This winter is coming soon, and he hopes to put the workshop into use within one winter. At the same time, the craftsmen in the equipment department worked overtime to produce lathes, and when the workshop was established, the equipment could be moved there. The production of coal ball stoves is also in progress. Because of the simplicity of manufacture, the equipment division can produce 30 gas stoves a day. After winning the management right of the coal pellet stove, the Qin family came to pick up the goods the next day, but despite spending a lot of money, the Qin family did not dare to buy too much at one time. They were still worried about the sales of the coal pellet stove in such busyness. The weather is getting colder day by day. At the end of the first month of Xiao Ming's journey, a heavy snowfall from the north covered King Zhao City. The snow was heavy and swaying, and when I woke up the next day, King Zhao seemed to be buried in the snow. "His Royal Highness, look at how much snow is here." In the snow, Lulo's little face was flushed red with cold, 1 foot deep and the other shallow. She smiled sweetly at him. Xiao Ming sat at the door of the dormitory, guarding a briquette stove to bake his hands. The weather today is at least -17 or 18 degrees below zero. In previous times, he was a southerner, and he had never experienced such cold weather. Now he just wanted to hold the stove and not move his nest. However, Lulo and Aster seemed to have long been accustomed to such weather, and they enjoyed playing in the snow. Aster also smiled at Xiao Ming and said, "His Royal Highness, come on, you will be warm with every move. Let's play. This king won't go." Xiao Ming said, "It is also a pleasure to appreciate beautiful women playing." Aster and Lulo looked at each other, and suddenly one of them picked up a snowball and threw it at Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming pretended to be angry, and at the same time dodged left and right. The two snowballs fell into the air. Aster and Luo smiled when they saw it, but suddenly they stopped their smiles because they saw Pang Changshi walking over from the front hall. P.S. During the period of the new book, I hope everyone will collect it and support it with recommended tickets. Chapter 21 Production Team. Snowflakes like cotton wool were still falling. Pang Yukin walked all the way, and his body was covered with a layer of white. When he reached Xiaoming, he bowed and said, "Your Highness, no gift." Pang Changshi came over to bake the coal ball oven, which is also warm and soothing. Pang Yukin was wearing thin clothes, and his face was a little purple from the cold. Dayu country is no better than modern times. Every family has padded jackets and down jackets. Here, padded jackets are luxury goods. At least Pang Yukin can't afford to wear them, trembling because of the cold. Pang Yukin said, "Your Highness, there is a difference between the superior and the inferior. The lower official should stand." Xiaoming has already learned about Pang Yukin's rigid character this month. Every time he behaves out of the way, Pang Yukin will scold him righteously, without caring that he is the dignified king of Qi. As for why Pang Yukin was like this, Xiaoming also generally understood after asking Aster and Luo. There is no other reason, because when Pang Yukin was in Chang'an, he was the official. Specifically speaking, they do nothing with their salary, and stare at other officials all day long to find the wrong people. These officials are of very low rank, but they range from the 9th rank sesame officials to the 1st rank officials of the dynasty, and even the emperor. None of these people dare to scold. The reason for this is that there is an unwritten rule in all dynasties and dynasties, that is, not to kill officials over time. Anyone who kills a speech official has been scolded as a scumbag. With this level of moral restraint, even if the emperor doesn't like speaking officials, he has to endure it, and Pang Yukin was sent here by Xiao Wangxun. It was like killing two birds with one stone. One could keep an eye on Xiaoming to prevent Xiaoming from acting out of control. One was that Chang'an lacks someone who bothered him. Pang Changshi doesn't have to be restrained. You and I are in King's Hao together. According to the father's wishes, I am afraid that neither of you nor I will be able to return to Chang'an. In this case, we should help each other a lot. Xiaoming's eyes flashed. Clean up, began to sow discord. Pang Yukin's expression moved slightly. His parents were both in Chang'an. Like Xiaoming, he had only returned to Chang'an once in 5 years, and the chance of the emperor letting him go back to Chang'an is slim. Pang Yukin has an upright personality, but he is not a fool. But he understands that Xiao Wangxun sent him to King's Hao because he was angry with him. His Royal Highness is the King of Qi, and I am the long history of King's Hao. It is the duty of a low-ranking official to assist His Highness. As long as His Highness is diligent in government and loves the people, and does not do anything eccentric, I will naturally not sue His Highness to the Emperor. Pang Yukin looked serious. Elm nods. Xiaoming scolded secretly that it would be impossible to take Pang Yukin as a private minister in a short period of time, because Pang Yukin had the Great Yu Kingdom in his heart. Xiaoming is working so hard now, but in the end it is for his own fief. As for the Great Yu Kingdom, he doesn't have much affection, and the person sitting on the throne has nothing to do with him. Pang Changshi's remarks are reasonable. He realizes that the past is not admonished, and he knows that those who come here can be followed. In fact, it is not far from the lost road, and I feel that the present is not the past. This king was ignorant in the past, and I have offended you. Please bear with me. Today, Pang Changshi came here despite the heavy snow, but it was actually for farming. Xiaoming reclined on the chair. The warmth of the stove brought a hint of laziness in his voice. Pang Yukin said, ever since His Highness gave the order to reclaim the farmland, the people of all the prefectures cheered and cheered. In just 1 month, the number of acres of fields reported by the state officials has reached more than 300,000 acres, and it has been registered and recorded in the name of the person who reclaimed the land. Down 30 acres, Xiaoming measured it. According to the household registration statistics of King's Hao, his fiefs had a total of 1 million households in the 6 prefectures. According to the minimum number of people in a family of 3, it is 3 million people. If it is based on 5 people, it is 500 people. 10,000 people, and he believes that the number of 5 million is more accurate, because the mortality rate in this era is very high, and there are generally 3 or 4 children in the family of the common people. The population of 5 million in the Great Yu country is not much, but it is not much. Because of the unification, the population of the Great Yu country has grown greatly in a stable environment. In Xiaoming's view, it is almost on par with the Song dynasty. It seems that Xiaoming is not very satisfied with this number. Pang Yukin added, this is also something that can't be done. Some wealthy families have a cattle, so they can farm more, while poor families lack tools, so naturally it will be slower. Xiao Ming nodded. This time I came to you for this reason. This king intends to set up production teams in various prefectures, counties and villages. Production team. Pang Yukin showed a puzzled look. He had never heard of this term before, and Xiao Ming's words just now, "Don't be indifferent to the past." He felt a little surprised that it was true today and not yesterday, because Xiao Ming in the past couldn't say such elegant words. Xiao Ming waved to Pang Yukin. "I'm afraid this will take a long time to talk about, so Pang Changshi should sit down and talk slowly at this time." Lulu ran over from the snow carrying her skirt, trotted all the way into Xiao Ming's bedroom, took out a chair and placed it by the fireplace. Smiling at Xiao Ming, Lulu rubbed her red face, and ran to play with Zhuan again. Pang Yukin felt that his feet were about to freeze and numb. Xiao Ming's words for a long time made him unable to hold it any longer. He had to walk unnaturally to the coal ball stove in front of Xiao Ming and sit down as if to hide the embarrassment. Pang Yukin said, "This is the coal pellet stove invented by His Royal Highness. It is indeed a good thing to keep warm in the house this winter. I heard that since the winter, the business of the Qin family's coal pellet stove has been very hot. That's natural. This coal ball stove is convenient and practical, especially in the cold winter. It's like sending charcoal in the snow. But if the Qin family makes money, it means that our equipment company has made money. Now the equipment company has hundreds of taels of silver in the account every day." Xiao Ming looked excited, but the heavy snow really helped him. Pang Yukin was slightly surprised that the equipment company, which was a big money-consuming company, had become a big money-maker, but what he could not have imagined was that the real money-making business was the briquettes business, and Xiao Ming also took 30% of the profits from the Wang family. "Since this is the case, I hope your highness can make good use of this silver tael, and don't use it for that romantic affair." Pang Yukin's old problem was committed again. Xiao Ming was stunned, and smiled helplessly. This Pang Yukin really did not leave his line in 3 words. He said, "Don't worry about Pang Changshi. I didn't use the silver taels indiscriminately. Instead, I asked Chen Wenlong to purchase a batch of cattle from Uncle Wei's fief and forged a batch of farm tools." Pang Yukin was really surprised. Xiao Ming continued, "The production team I mentioned just now has something to do with these materials. Because of the inequality between the rich and the poor, the fields cultivated by the people are also different. Now we divide the people into production teams, and each production team is divided into production teams. Select a captain. The government will provide cattle and farming tools, the production team will be responsible for management, and the people of the entire production team will use it together, which will greatly accelerate the reclamation of wasteland in future planting." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Iron Troubles. Xiao Ming explained. Pang Yukin listened in fascination. The concept of the production team gradually became clear in his mind. A brand new production method made him suddenly have a feeling of clearing the clouds and seeing the sun. In fact, the concept of production team is easy to understand. It is to divide the people into groups according to the number of people, and each group is allocated with cattle and tools. These production tools are shared by the group, and the groups cooperate with each other when sowing and harvesting. In this way, production efficiency can be greatly improved, and the team leader is responsible for production tasks and supervises production. For Pang Yukin, this is a completely unfamiliar concept. Not only the Great Yu Kingdom, but also the government of the past dynasties will only be responsible for land and tax issues. Never has production been implemented on the common people. Like Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming saw Pang Yukin's expression. He was just borrowing modern production methods, and the country of Daiyu was still in the self-sufficiency of the small peasant economy. But this self-sufficiency has also been destroyed by the land monopoly of the rich and powerful, and now his fief can be said to be extremely low in productivity. Xiao Ming now proposes that the production method of the production team has to be a last resort. His fief is too embarrassed, and now he can only get rid of the backward situation by organizing strongly. At least now, when productivity is lagging behind, he believes that this method is extremely efficient. In the face of national predicament, the planned economy is the sharpest knife. Letting things go is only equal to breaking the pot. Now the massive annexation of his fiefdoms has demonstrated this problem. Without strong control, the people will lose more under the action of technology. Pang Yukin has a deeper understanding of the structure and understanding of the production team. His Royal Highness, the lower officials have been taught, I will now notify the state officials to organize production teams and distribute the cattle and tools. Pang Yukin said, wait, for those wealthy households who are willing to share their farming cattle and farming tools with a production team, a certain amount of compensation can be given. Another point is that the protection of farming cattle and farming tools must be restricted by laws. Xiao Ming added. Pang Yukin bowed again and saluted, and went to the governor's mansion impatiently. Although he had never heard of this method of production, after understanding it, he understood that it would quickly restore production in Qingzhou. On the way to the governor mansion, Pang Yukin remembered that Xiao Ming, who had just calmed down, was very confused. The current King Qi is too different from before. Why is this? Frowning and thinking hard, he suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be that King Qi has been hiding his talent so as not to be regarded as an opponent by other princes? This assassination has made King Qi realize that he has nowhere to hide. Looking back at the direction of Prince Qi's mansion, Pang Yukin's eyes showed a look of contemplation at this time. In Prince Qi's mansion, Xiao Ming also glanced in the direction of the governor mansion. He could see that Pang Yukin was ambitious. Which scholar of this era does not have the country's society in mind? The world is common, in short. The scholar of this era is very high. Pang Yukin is known as the most vicious official, naturally because he is full of ambition and has a passion for the great Yu kingdom. That's why Xiao Ming takes a fancy to Pang Yukin. Such people are rare, because they do practical things, and such people are also disgusting, because they are not well-mannered. But anyway, when it comes to thieves, Pang Yukin is a good hand. He has been in Qingzhou for 5 years, and the people did not rise up and hang him on the city gate. Thanks to Pang Yukin. When he talked about the production team, Pang Yukin's eyes lit up. It seemed that he was talking about Pang Yukin's heart. It is estimated that there is not much problem with this production team stretching. Xiao Ming tightened the tiger skin cloak on his body. This thing is genuine. Tigers here are not protected animals, but to harm His Royal Highness. Are you going to the equipment division again? Seeing Xiao Ming descending the steps, Aster walked towards Xiao Ming. Today, Aster is still wearing a purple skirt, but inside the skirt is a thick winter coat. Xiao Ming also has this kind of winter clothes. He has seen it, and it is covered with kapok. In some parts of the great Yu country, cotton is still planted on a large scale, but it is only worn by wealthy people. Otherwise, why did the ancients come to the stinky wine and meat of Zuman? And the road has frozen bones. Let's go and see how the farm tools that this king explained are forged. Xiao Ming said. The servant sent someone to prepare a horse for his highness, Zuan said, and then quickly sent the servant to the stable. Xiao Ming nodded. After Jin Dafu went out to look for mines, Aster took care of all the chores up and down in the palace, but this girl managed it in an orderly manner. A lot of time has passed since the assassination, but every time Xiao Ming went out, he still brought a bodyguard with him. When they arrived at the gate of the palace, 2 personal guards were already waiting at the gate. These are the 2 bodyguards that Lu Fei personally selected for him. They are responsible for his safety. The 2 are still brothers. One is Zhao Long and the other is Zhao Hu. When he arrived at the equipment department, Xiao Ming directly went to see the farming tools that were going to be distributed. This time part of the silver earned last time was used to build a workshop, and part was used to buy cattle and forge farming tools. But there is one thing Xiao Ming is satisfied with. Since he handed over the technology of briquettes to the Wang family, the ore and coal of the equipment company are much cheaper now, and the cost is deducted from his share, which saves Xiao Ming a lot of money. Less money in the equipment department. The craftsmen are busy, some are forging, some are smelting iron ore. The iron-making technology in Dayu country is still based on the steel filling method. Generally speaking, this method is to bundle pig iron sheets on wrought iron sheets. Generally speaking, the carbon content of wrought iron is below 0.02%, while that of pig iron is 2%. Above. In this way, the liquid pig iron can be evenly integrated into the wrought iron sheet, resulting in steel with carbon in between. This method is widely spread in Dayu country, and it is a relatively good steel-making method, but according to the current equipment department's demand for agricultural tools and coal stoves, the steel-making volume of this method gradually cannot keep up with the requirements. This time Xiao Ming came here to improve the method of making steel. It's just that he can't change the steel pouring method for the time being, because the crucible steel making requires graphite, and the converter steel making is even more impossible. Blast furnace iron making? Chen Wenlong looked blank when Xiao Ming proposed this method. There is iron, there is steel. This is a real problem at present. This graphite? Xiao Ming asked Jin Dafu to focus on finding it. Now a month has passed, and there is no news. He can only temporarily increase the production of iron, and when Jin Dafu returns, If he succeeds in finding graphite, the increase in iron production can form a production line with that of crucible steel making. Chapter 23 Everything is Production. Chen Wenlong and the other craftsmen all looked at Xiaoming at this time after the briquettes furnace and lathe. Xiaoming once again put forward a shocking technique, especially the craftsmen. They have been proficient in this art all their lives, and the skills handed down from their ancestors have never changed, but now Xiaoming has completely subverted their cognition. Yes, the steel produced by the pouring method is very mature in technique, but such steel requires repeated forging to improve the strength of the steel, which is a waste of time. Xiaoming said, I will teach you now. 2 blast furnaces will be built, and the 2 will be connected, one of which will produce pig iron, and the pig iron will be refined into wrought iron when it enters the other blast furnace, so that iron making will form a scale. Chen Wenlong asked the craftsmen to stop what they were doing, sat on the ground, and listened carefully to Xiaoming again. Now this kind of knowledge transfer is commonplace in the equipment department, and Chen Wenlong and the craftsmen are also familiar with it. Xiaoming held a stone pen prepared by Chen Wenlong. This is a kind of stone similar to chalk that can draw white handwriting. In front of him is a black stone slab. He usually talks while drawing the structure of the blast furnace. The craftsmen are serious, and every time Xiaoming teaches a skill, they have a feeling of epiphany, and they can master these unfamiliar skills quickly. The boring machines, drilling machines, milling machines, and grinding machines manufactured by the equipment division are all manufactured according to Xiaoming's drawings and the images in their memory. After the initial trial, these lathes were basically successful. For example, the drilling machine, which is a kind of lathe that drills holes for accessories, they successfully drilled the iron sheet of the gas furnace. Another example is the boring machine. This type of lathe can bore the holes drilled by the drilling machine. In Xiaoming's words, these 2 types of lathes can process a solid steel into a steel pipe. Because a drilling machine can drill a hole in solid steel, a boring machine can drill the hole into a tube. Although they didn't understand what Xiaoming said about steel pipes, they always felt that it was a very powerful thing. Suddenly an hour passed, Xiaoming's mouth was dry, and he finished talking about the skills of blast furnace iron making. Your Highness, in that case, how should we control the heat of coke refining? A craftsman suddenly asked. This is a very young craftsman. Every time Xiaoming teaches, this young craftsman is always the most serious, and seems to be very enthusiastic about the skills Xiaoming talks about. However, probably because he was afraid of Xiaoming, the craftsman never asked a question. This time Xiaoming took the coke in one stroke, and he couldn't help but ask, what's your name? Xiaoming is very interested in this young craftsman of the same age as himself. In his opinion, only with a desire for knowledge can a person be keen on his own career, and this young craftsman is clearly full of enthusiasm for the equipment department at this time. Chen Wenlong looked embarrassed and said to Xiaoming, Your Highness, he is Chen Qi, the dog's son of a lower official. After he finished speaking, he shouted to the young craftsman, Go back, when will it be your turn to speak here? Chen Qi frowned and said dissatisfiedly, Father, I just asked about the temperature of the coke. If I am confused, if the coke is burned, it will cause a huge loss to the equipment department. Chen Wenlong wanted to scold him, but Xiaoming suddenly stopped him. He looked at Chen Qi with satisfaction and said, Chen Qi is right, this skill must be more realistic. This lathe is said to be made by Chen Qi and other craftsmen? Your Highness, this is true. Chen Longwen shook his head. Chen Qi never liked to read, but was only interested in these strange things. Xiaoming beckoned to Chen Qi. Yes, your head is very flexible. Would you like to be the head of the equipment department? Chen Qi was overjoyed when he heard the words, but looked at Chen Wenlong worriedly. Without waiting for Chen Wenlong to say nonsense such as Chen Qi's young age, Xiaoming said directly, Then it's settled, 1 or 2 silver tattoos per month, and you will take the lead in the things I will explain in the future. Yes, Your Highness. Chen Qi said excitedly, and this craftsman's head could be a soldier. In the past, his father, Chen Wenlong, never liked him to study this way, but now that he was so appreciated by King Qi, he suddenly became confident. However, the question to be asked has not been asked, and he said, Your Highness, you haven't said what kind of heat is needed to smolder the coke. It's 30% lower than when iron smelting. Xiaoming said, Iron smelting requires about 1,400 degrees, and coke is about 1,000 degrees. Try boldly, it will be fine if you burn it. Chen Qi said loudly, Yes, Your Highness. The matter of blast furnace iron making went on, and the blast furnace still needed time to build. He hoped that at that time, Jin Dafu could bring back the good news of graphite. In this way, he can make blast furnace iron and crucible steel into one production line. Next, Xiao Ming went to check the lathes. These lathes were antique-grade lathes from the 17th century in his world and were powered by hand. Moreover, the drill bits of the lathe are also steel tools that are usually forged by craftsmen. These tools are enough to process some rough accessories. Looking at the various lathes in front of him, Xiao Ming felt a little more at ease. With these lathes, he could produce some small parts, and these small parts could be assembled into one of the oldest simple machines, a clock. In his opinion, in his era, the foundation of industry started from the watchmaker, because from this time, all kinds of sophisticated accessories entered the stage of history. As for guns and guns, Xiao Ming thought about it, but he understood that it would be unrealistic within a few years. As the saying goes, the sound of a cannon is worth 10,000 taels of gold. Not to mention that the current fief is poor and white. It is just that Xiao Ming can't afford the long cycle of making a gun with a manual lathe. Basically, doing this before the advent of the steam engine is almost equivalent to a joke. So now Xiao Ming has set a plan. Everything is for production, and when his fief is rich, with a preliminary large-scale factory and industrial system, these things can be built with a commensurate economic volume. Because in Xiao Ming's view, war is all about money and resources. Otherwise, once the ammunition and food are exhausted, everything will be nonsense. It is too unrealistic to abandon production and exhaust material resources. Therefore, the plan for today is to build fiefs. Of course, the army also needs to be strengthened. One is to defend against the steppe barbarians, and the other is to prevent bandits in winter. According to past experience, every winter, when food is hard to find, is when thieves crowd. Chapter 24 Field Property. By the way, there are still too few craftsmen in the equipment department. Now that there is enough money, we should recruit more people. Chen Qi, this matter is left to you. You can't find skilled craftsmen, but you can find some apprentices. The most important point is that be as interested in these technologies as you are. Before leaving, Xiao Ming said to Chen Qi that although Chen Wenlong is a soldier, his thinking is still a bit rigid, and he is far less open than a young man like Chen Qi. He is in charge of the daily affairs of the equipment department, but the gap between the technology he taught and Chen Qi is not so big. Chen Qi nodded vigorously and was appreciated by King Qi, which was a great honor for an ordinary craftsman without fame. After seeing Xiao Ming off, Chen Qi stood at the door of the equipment department and said to his father, "Father, our highness is still very reasonable. This is now. If it was in the past, you kid had to eat a plate." Chen Wenlong raised his foot and kicked Chen Qi's ass. Chen Qi dodged, immediately ducked, and said with a laugh, "Father, I'm a bona fide craftsman now. You can't say I'm ignorant now. You see how much our highness attaches great importance to our equipment department. I think there will be great things to do in the future." Chen Wenlong blew his beard and stared at him. He had a child in his later years, and he naturally doted on Chen Qi, so he indulged Chen Qi to study these strange things in this way. When he relinquishes his position as a soldier, Chen Qi has great hope of inheriting it. He said, "Since your highness attaches so much importance to you, you must not fail his highness's expectations. I have observed these days, and you do have this talent. Go, I will leave this blast furnace to you. Responsible for the procurement and revenue and expenditure of the device department, Dad, don't worry." Chen Qi said excitedly. His father meant to let him do it. The snow in Qingzhou City was still falling, and the wind was blowing like a dandelion rising in the wind. After a while, Xiao Ming was covered with a snow coat. Zhao Long and Zhao Hu rode closely behind Xiao Ming on horseback, observing the surroundings vigilantly. From time to time the last assassination made the atmosphere of the entire Qingzhou City a little solemn. The most annoying thing about this incident was Lu Fei. The assassination in Qingzhou City, which he was guarding, was a shame for him, so he explained to the two that King Qi could not make any mistakes. Xiao Ming felt Zhao Long and Zhao Hu's nervousness. It was a barbaric age, and the law could only be trampled on by the strong. If you want to be free, you must have strong strength. He is not a person with strong ambitions, but he also understands that the stronger the fief, the safer he is. So he didn't want to get involved in the political whirlpool of the great Yu Kingdom. He just wanted to make a fortune in silence, live a leisurely life, grow fields, engage in industry, and make his side a prosperous place. Of course, if someone wants to destroy the life he wants, he doesn't mind going from a sheep to a waking lion and tearing each other to pieces. The last assassination may have come from his siblings, or other people with ulterior motives for this. Xiao Ming is not angry, because anger without strength is meaningless, and this is also the price a prince must bear to pursue this matter in vain. It is better to focus on construction. Not because of this little stimulation. Zhao Long, Zhao Hu, do you remember where this king's property is? The palace was really boring, and Luo and Shun were doing embroidery in their free time. He didn't want to disturb him. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that he seemed to be a big landowner and had a large field outside Qingzhou City. Every prince in the Great Yu Kingdom has his own land, and his vassal king is no exception. After the vassal of Qingzhou, he will dedicate a large piece of fertile land to you according to the vassal king's land property standards. Zhao Long is 1 year older than Zhao Hu, and the two of them are also more eloquent. He said, "Your Highness, in Qingzhou City, your land is the most fertile, on both sides of the Yang River in the north of the city, but these lands have not yet been cultivated. It's still a big wasteland." Xiao Ming nodded. "That's true." After a large area of land was drawn down, Xiao Ming didn't do anything about production and didn't bother to care about it. "These lands have been deserted until now. Go, accompany this king to see." Xiao Ming said, "His Royal Highness, the road is blocked by heavy snow. I'm afraid it would be inappropriate to go outside the city at this time." Zhao Hu said worriedly. Zhao Hu didn't say much, but every time he was very brief. Xiao Ming was excited about the property, but he ignored his advice. If he remembered correctly, the standard of land for the king of the Great Yu Kingdom was 100 hectares. These hectares and mu are almost the same as modern times, which means that he has 10,000 mu of land, which is equivalent to an area 5 miles long and wide, and the area is not small in the Great Yu Kingdom. There was originally Huangzhuang, official land and private land, and his land belonged to Huangzhuang. It is only winter now. If he takes advantage of the winter to reclaim these wastelands, and the spring starts tomorrow, his estate can also be sold. Thinking of this, Xiao Ming couldn't suppress his mood to go, because he also thought of a policy that could reduce Qingzhou's finances. He said to the two, "Call Captain Lu and bring some soldiers, so it's always safe." Zhao Hu nodded. "This shouldn't be a big problem. I'm just worried about meeting bandits." "Well, what you reminded is that this year the king ordered to reduce taxes and open up wasteland. I hope this bandit rebellion will be less." Xiao Ming frowned slightly. Unlike modern times, it is not an uncommon period to be a thief in this era. These people are either because they can't eat, or because they violate the law, and of course some of them are pure bad guys. These people can be a disaster for one side by pulling a mountain, and because of the large area and sparse population, the lack of information, the inconvenience of transportation and other factors, it is very difficult for the government to arrest them even in a peaceful and prosperous world. This folk bandit is often haunted, not to mention him here. When he arrived at the north of the city and explained the reason, Lu Fei's first reaction was to reject. Unable to defeat Xiao Ming, Lu Fei had to send all his cavalry to follow Xiao Ming out of the city. The Mi River was in the south and the Yang River was in the north. A group of more than 30 people rode horses for more than 10 miles and finally reached the Yang River, which is a river that is slightly smaller than the Mi River. "His Royal Highness, this is your property." But His Highness did not pay attention to it in the past, and now it has been deserted. Lu Fei said. Xiao Ming looked around, and both sides of the Yang River were white. Only the galloping Yang River was flowing, and the snowflakes fell into the water and melted immediately. It is estimated that Xiao Ming is the only one who does not know about his own land. The piece of land that Lu Fei pointed to is the land on both sides of the Yang River, which is indeed a high-quality fertile land. "Well, it's a pity," Xiao Ming said. He looked at Lu Fei and said, "Lu Fei, do you still remember the military system of the previous dynasty?" Chapter 25 Production Core. "Remember, Your Highness." Lu Fei clenched his fists. Xiao Ming's words were definitely not without purpose. He asked, "Your Highness, do you want to restore the military system of the government?" "Precisely. In the early days of the Great Yu nationality, the government adopted the military system, integrating the soldiers into the farmers, but today, the people have no land to cultivate, and the government military system has gradually disappeared in name only, and it has become the current military recruitment system." Xiao Ming lightly brushed the dust on his body. Luo Zhu said, "Now the 6 prefectures are in need of development, and everything should be planned for farming. I am going to temporarily implement the government military system. Soldiers and farmers in each prefecture will return to the fields when they are busy and train troops when they are slack. This will reduce the financial pressure, and secondly, it will speed up the restoration of the 6 states. State production, what do you think?" Lu Fei pondered for a while, then said, "Your Highness, it is not impossible to restore the military system of the government. Now Your Highness is the king of the 6 states, and your order is our sergeant's duty, but now most of the people who join the army are people who have no land to farm. To restore the military system of the government, today's soldiers also have no land to farm." Xiao Ming had already anticipated this problem. He said to Lu Fei, I have thought about this problem, so the restored government military system at this time is somewhat different from the previous government military system. Please also make it clear, Your Highness. Xiao Ming continued, the people who have fields can naturally return to their hometowns to farm. If the soldiers who don't have fields can cultivate the official fields, the grain harvested from the official fields can be used as food for the army. What do you think? Lu Fei laughed dumbly. After a long time, Xiao Ming was trying to get the King Zhao army to cultivate his land. He has always been upright and said bluntly, HMPH, I really think about the people of the fief when I become His Royal Highness. It turned out to be from my own land. Xiao Ming is not angry. Anyone who sees it now, Xiao Ming is all for himself. He laughed loudly. If Colonel Lu looked at me like this, it would be a big mistake. Not only will I not take a cent from my property, but the harvest from the property will also be handed over to the treasury. As you said, the fief it's all mine. Should I compare these gains and losses? In my opinion, if the people are rich, the fiefs will be rich, and if the people are strong, the fiefs will be strong. If you don't believe me, this king can make a letter and hand it over to Pang Changshi. How about that? Lu Fei was stunned. The royal family of the Great Yu Kingdom and the rich and powerful family were not accumulating money for their own use. Now Xiao Ming wants to confiscate his own property, which is unprecedented. Your Highness, do you really do it? Lu Fei asked again. Yes, the gentleman is quick with his words. Xiao Ming looked directly at Lu Fei. This thorn is not easy to deal with. The only thing I worry about is that the soldiers will not believe me, so I need you to come forward to execute this matter. Nodding slowly, Lu Fei said, the last general will trust His Highness again. If His Highness fulfills his promise, Lu Fei will swear to serve His Highness. Because His Highness is a sage master, if His Highness goes back on his word, Lu Fei can only bring the soldiers have gone elsewhere. This king doesn't want to have a group of thieves led by you on the land. Xiao Ming said lightly, Lu Fei's prestige in the army is very high. This sentence is not bragging. If he really fell into trouble, a large number of soldiers would definitely follow. In this case, the soldiers are up to me to persuade. Lu Fei nodded heavily. The snow was getting bigger, and the road could no longer be seen dozens of meters away. Now the location of the property is also clear, and the plan to transform the army into a production corps has also been supported by Lu Fei. This was an important step for him, as the recruiting system made the military a big financial drain. The financial difficulties and the inability to raise troops is also the reason why the fiefs of 1 million households have less than 5,000 troops. Insufficient numbers and extremely poor equipment. This is his army, and it is no different from a gang of bandits. In order to change the current situation of poverty and whiteness, we must implement a military model of building a production corps to reduce the military's financial consumption. In fact, this model of building and producing corps is also called troop formation, and this model will appear in every area of material scarcity. On the way back, Xiao Ming continued to instill the essentials of the production and construction corps to Lu Fei. He was going to divide the army into two parts, a production corps and a construction corps. The construction corps is responsible for mining, road, and river dam construction. Lu Fei was a rough man, and he didn't know much about the previous military system. After Xiao Ming told him the necessity of building a production corps in such a detailed manner, he suddenly realized His Royal Highness, Lu Fei is wrong. It turns out that His Highness is working hard. In this case, we can now announce the recruitment and expand the 5,000 to the normal number of 50,000. Lu Fei said. Xiao Ming nodded, yes, but we can't expand so many people at once. Our food can't support it now, so how about we recruit 5,000 people first, and then continue to expand when the official fields are harvested? I ignored that. Lu Fei patted his head and smiled cheerfully, but His Royal Highness promised that the sergeants who built the production corps would get 10 acres of fertile land and inherit it from generation to generation. Destroy the governor mansion. Ha ha ha. Xiao Ming also laughed. This is a benefit of the New Deal, and it is also to promote the people to join the army enthusiastically. I don't care about this matter. Let you, Lu Tiger, toss it out on your own. Lu Fei was stunned for a moment, then laughed naively. This Tiger Lu was his nickname in the army. When Xiao Ming called it out, he immediately felt a little closer to Xiao Ming. In the past month, Xiao Ming has deeply realized that it is not easy to be a vassal king. He needs to be able to use carrots and sticks, government affairs, and bows and horses. Now he can be said to be a full-time all-rounder. Under the heavy snow, a group of more than 30 rode towards Qingzhou City. Halfway through the road, suddenly a group of hazy figures appeared not far away, and this pedestrian was galloping towards them. Who? Stop! Lu Fei suddenly shouted. The last assassination incident made him still very sensitive. He couldn't see faces clearly in the heavy snow, so he had to be prepared for accidents in an instant. The 30 or so cavalry that accompanied Xiaoming protected Xiaoming in the middle, bent bows and arrows on horseback, ready to shoot at any time. The pedestrian didn't seem to hear Lu Fei's scolding, and still rushed over from behind. Seeing that the pedestrian was getting closer and closer, Lu Fei raised his hand and ordered the arrow to be fired. At this moment, someone in the pedestrian suddenly shouted, "Steward Jin, you have to hold on. Wait, it's Jin Dafu." Xiaoming immediately told his soldiers to put down their bows and arrows. Sure enough, the group came near, and it was Jin Dafu and others who went out to find mines. But at this time, Jin Dafu was lying on the horse's back, and a sharp arrow pierced his back. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.